Sasquatch and Holler. Please like and subscribe.
And hit that bell.
Hey,
Hey,
how y'all
everybody.
doing?
Oh, we're back again.
Hey, yeah, I told you, we're kind of different. A lot of people try to be professional and everything. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to throw you out there, but everybody in chat, we got a lot of people coming in. I want to say hi to y'all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing our show. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for subscribing to Amanda's channel.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I broke 91 subscribers today, so it's not a lot to a lot of people, but for me, that's huge. So I appreciate it.
You can go live now, so that helps. That'll bring some people in. But we've got Ernie with us. Davieau, did I say that correctly?
Close enough. It's all right.
Close enough. Okay. And so, Ernie's been on a few shows. Y'all know how I do. I watch things. I started this to learn and ask questions to figure out what happened to me and what has happened. So when I hear, I have like these unofficial boxes that get checked. Ernie checked them in about 3 minutes, and I quit watching. Well, I quit. I said, I want to read him. I want to talk to him. And so I asked him, and he graciously accepted. I told him anything goes tonight. He's welcome to share whatever. And Ernie, the intro there that came in that we just did, and then my logo. Do you know Chris Reinhardt up in your area?
Yeah, I don't know him personally, but yes, I do.
He designed that and did the intro for me. So,
nice, very nice.
He did a good job. So, well, tell the people don't know that are in chat. Just tell us, where you're from, and when did you have the first encounter that made you know that these things are real? About what time was it?
It's a really good question, and I have to really think back a little bit, anyways. But I don't include anything that I've never seen. Like
Right.
if you're hunting deer,
Yes.
you can't include the deer that you didn't see or the fish that got away in your evening meal.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I can't include anything that I didn't see. The actual entity that actually made tracks or anything. Although I have seen them in the past, we have had them around our house at a place I lived at, which you're going to be bringing that up in a little while, I think. Okay, and but the actual first sighting that I seen was in the mid to late 80s, and that's the one that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Prior to that, I never really believed that they existed anyways. I seen the Patty Gremlin film, and I figured that they were just, there was one of them, and it was probably dead by now. And, I'm never going to see, even though my generation is, it was every boy's dream to get the biggest deer that was out there, or the biggest bear, or the biggest fish, or, or even see something like that. So it was put in the back of my mind, and that's where it stayed in this little box way back there. I never suspected that anything like this would happen.
Right. And that, you hear that all the time, now that you're talking to people the same way with me. So it was the same way with me. I equate it to, I was born in 71, and Godzilla would come on Sundays, and I would, Daddy, that thing can't get here, can it? Because it scared me as a kid. Well, I felt the same way with the Bigfoot. It was one of them, and it was, it was way away from here. So, boy, did that change real fast.
Yeah,
But,
same for
Yeah.
me, seeing just Bigfoot and other monsters on the shows like Monster Quest and stuff like that in the late 90s and early 2000s for me. Yeah, I was always sort of, don't want that coming in after me, please.
yeah, and it just it changes your whole golly. My thing was like, well, if that thing's real, I was 14. If that thing's real, what else is real that they're saying is not?
Precisely.
Did how did it? I got a couple questions. How did it affect you hunting wise? Because I'm a hunter too, and I know I turned into a more of a field hunter after that. And then when you're sharing your stories, how does it make you feel? Is it something you do for other people to educate, so to speak?
Yeah. In my encounters, a lot of people know, uh, the majority of people probably know this, that your average encounter is between 5 and 11 seconds long. That's all you have. If you have one that lasts like over a minute, then wow, that's pretty good length of time. Um, it changed me profoundly because of one part of that. And without telling the story just yet, I'll just say that David Paulides comes to mind.
Oh,
That
okay.
this forest person, you're going to hear me say forest person, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. You're going to hear me say a lot of different names, and that's for everybody out there. It's on their ground, their terms.
Mhm.
It knew how to approach me, so that really bothered me enough to um, make me really think long and hard about it. I had to look deep inside of myself on why did this happen to me, and quite obviously there was some type of a message there. So I basically sat back for, oh gosh, 38 years or so. And I was just like, eventually started ghosting people when they started having these forums and everything. And I would just sit on these forums and watch and read, what was going on them, and who I could possibly ever tell this to. And it started to become evident to me that nobody was going to have something like this. And it tore me up because being back from, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, Roger, before we came on, there wasn't anybody to talk to back then.
Yeah.
And when people hear this story, it's mind boggling today, never mind back then. So I was praying. I literally prayed just about every single day that somebody would come forward, somebody would lock elbows with me, somebody else would say, that something similar happened to them, and it never happened. Then I started seeing eyewitnesses coming forward on these forums and really being beaten badly, because a
Right.
lot of these podcasters were getting into it just for the money and not for the research, because the research is really in your eyewitnesses. You wouldn't have the vaccine for polio had it not been for one individual seeing it through a microscope. You would not have ever gone to the moon if not one individual looked through a telescope. So we can't look at it. A lot of people use that words to as an escape factor. Like, there are no experts, there are experts. There
Right.
are experts in different things. Okay, until you meet another person that knows more than that person, then that one becomes the expert. Your goal should be to become the expert and to further the research. This research, i.e., is old. It should no longer be where it is. My strong opinion, we should be Jane Goodalling this. That was a woman that had more brass than any man out there,
Yep.
that against all odds, okay, took it herself, walked up that mountain, and what did she do? It was about communication,
Yeah.
because there isn't anything that you're going to learn from anything by turning around and running away. If you want to know your neighbor and you go over and knock on the door, they go to answer the door, you turn around, you run away, you're never going to meet your neighbor.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared for those things, and you have to want to learn, and you have to be able to do the main factor, and that is communicate. So that will probably come out for
Well, Ernie, that's why when I started the show a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? one of my goals was seeing the different groups of people here that they wouldn't listen to each other. Amanda's heard me say this a bunch, and she said
we're all in the same boat. This way, I think.
Yeah, we all agree, Ernie, that I wanted to see if I could draw them a little closer to each other, and at least get them to listen to others, because I tell people I only know what's happened to me. That's what I know. I can read all the books I want to, but I know what's happened in the woods. I know what we've seen. I know what we've heard. I know what we've smelled. I know the evidence that's built up. That's all I know. And I'm like you. If I didn't see it there, I say it's possible. So I grew up like that too. My dad, we were pretty, if I said I saw an 8-pointer, it was an 8-pointer. I didn't embellish on it at all. So
correct.
We're on the same page, and that's one thing I like about you. When I hear people that have that type of thinking, you're okay in my book. So, but so if I know there people are dying to hear the encounter, and just if you'd get into that or whatever. Ernie, this is your show. We're here. You're teaching us.
It is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm really, really happy to meet both of you right now, because one of our mutual friends is Tim Vogel, and I grew up in the hill towns of Massachusetts.
Yep.
I firmly believe it. Sorry, everybody that's out there. I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings, but the Hilltown people are family. Every single one of them is family. They'll be there by your side to hang with you. They'll be there if one of your family members is sick or whatever. Okay. Yeah. And that's really what we have right here. We're not going to embellish anything.
Right.
I again want to stress it with everybody that I stand for the eyewitnesses. I'm that's the world that I'm from. It looked like nobody was going to be coming forward and standing in that field locking elbows with me. So I'm going to make it evident. I'm going to ask everybody to lock elbows with me, because in the end, you're going to have the opportunity to do this and to move this football down the field. With that, for the people that are familiar with hunting, back in the day, we used to go down to the bookstore and we used to get ourselves a little topographical map of whatever area that you're going to be hunting. And you were smart if you did that. Yes, there were areas that I would hunt that was close by that I grew up in. I didn't think anything of walking from my house through the woods. And when I say through the woods, it sounds like just a little jaunt, that I'm on, but it's actually probably a couple of miles through the reservoir area, out to a friend of mine whose father was a caretaker of one of the reservoirs out there. Your mom and dad would let you go. I was, I think I was like probably 6 or 7 years old, and I'd be walking like from Montgomery all the way down to Huntington, and that was almost 15 miles, and they wouldn't worry about it because I would pick apples along the way to eat or whatever. And we never really heard, of course, the media was really slack then, but we never heard of anybody disappearing or anything like that. But that's the way the Hilltown life was.
Right. Very
close. But I had gotten a topographical map of that area. I had hunted all over the East Coast, all over the New England area, I should say, and that part of Massachusetts, which was just outside of my we call it the city, okay, that I was born in, then moved to Montgomery, and Roger's going to post a picture in a little while, and I'll explain that.
Amanda didn't get to see it, I don't think. Did you? I showed you the link.
You're going to have a good laugh.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I can tell you. Because it comes from Tim Vogel, because them guys are still laughing about it. But anyways, the area, any place that I chose to hunt, I chose to go in deep, where I would no longer see any litter from people. Right. And then I would go in an extra, what I figured might be a mile. I wanted to be away from everybody, because maybe I'm really going to go out there and take a nap, but I just wanted to be away from, I didn't want to see other people in there. That area is called Cobble Mountain. I was planning on hunting Drake Mountain, which is adjacent to the Granville Reservoir, which is located probably, I don't know, less than a mile away from the Cobble Mountain Reservoir in itself. And it was very steep in legend, okay, and history. To this day, people don't like to go up there because of things that go on up there. That didn't bother me. I enjoyed that. It didn't scare me. And that's the area. So I had got my topographical map that morning. I had figured that the wind was going to be blowing from the city that I lived in up over the top of the mountain towards the Granville area. So I drove right by the mountain and parked on the other side, Cobble Mountain, and started walking in from that side there. From the Westfield side, I should say, okay, there's a farm there, and they had an apple orchard there. Granville was loaded with apple orchards. On the other side of the mountain, away from where I had entered, there was apple orchards over there. There was a lot of feed there, a lot of water sources there. And if anybody came in from I think the east side, I'm not sure that direction, it's they would have been entering through Southwick and coming in from Connecticut, which would be basically everybody would be pushing deer up that mountain towards me.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to go up there. I knew nobody would go up there. Even if they seen a deer run up there, they wouldn't want to go up there. Okay. But so I proceeded to walk in. On my topographical map, I had everything marked on there. I had all the deer runs marked on there. The runs that they were using, it seemed heavy with evidence of their use, being scrapes, rubs, things like that. Feces, anything, if they're browsing going through there, if there was beech nuts in there, all that stuff was marked down. And I had figured that where they would be is on the side I was now entering on, because 3/4 of the way up there were these 3 boulders that I used to like to think of them as Stonehenge, because one of the boulders was 40 feet tall, and they were located really close. Yeah, located really close to each other. And I had evidence that they would bed down in there. And because of the way the wind was, and it was a crisp morning out, there was no snow on the ground, but it was the first week of December, last week of last day or two of shotgun season in the state of Massachusetts. So we had a little bit of frost on the ground, which made things a little bit crunchy, but the trail was, some people look at them as fire roads. Some people look at them as the old farmers' roads. And in all actuality, it was that, plus it was one more. It turned out that I was on what they call Uncomit's Path. And that was named after an Indian that would take the tax collector up from the colonial village in Connecticut, up through the mountains, all the way out to Pittsfield and back again to collect the taxes. He obviously knew the way. And it all along there, all in that mountain area that I was going to be hunting. I know the farmer that was living there. And I think we've taken 18 or 19 encounters just within a 2-mile circle. I actually want to be in the epicenter of, we'll say, a clan, okay, rather than a family unit. But I had gotten up to the that corner where the that Stonehenge that I was describing to you was, and I was trying to get closer to sneak in to get my harvest, get my deer, and they jumped up. I didn't hear them, but they jumped up, and they took off straight away from me. Now that trail I was on actually made a little bit of turn from there to the right, just a little bit of a turn, and it paralleled the top of that ridge. And I decided that what I was going to do is I was going to try to get out in front of those deer. That was my only hope. Get out in front of them and set up an ambush. I knew the area very well. And I had the wind was blowing in my face. It wasn't a strong wind, but still, and I could see my breath. So people that understand, if I can see my breath, your temperature is around 31, 32 degrees, somewhere right around there, depending on how much breath you can actually see. So they started moving away from me, and there's a lot of flat rock on that trail. So I decided I was going to try to hide my steps by trying to walk as much as I could is on those flat rocks, and then also do what I call 2-step. Instead of being a 4-legged animal, a 2-legged animal, just going thump, thump, you want to walk like a toe heel so that you actually are forcing yourself to sound like a 4-legged animal in case they do hear you. Right. Well, I started doing that, and I had them right on my right-hand side. They couldn't see me. I couldn't see them. They couldn't smell me. And when they moved, I would move, and then I would try to, see the trail and try to find spots where I could move quietly to move faster. And this whole time, this is nothing but hindsight, is there was something on the other side of them. I just assumed that it was a buck on the opposite side of those deer that were going along that ridge line. I managed to get out in front of them, probably from those boulders out the top of that mountain. It's probably like maybe around 400 yards or so. And then it goes straight over the top of the mountain down to that farm, and which is probably about a mile from there. And then it also, where the top is, it doglegs. It turns to the right and it doglegs back down the other side, where a brook comes out of the top of the mountain. There's called Drake Brook. In between that path and the path that I was originally on, coming up to set up an ambush point on those deer, there's a stone wall that cuts straight across between both paths. So I'm now I'm going to go in there and face that stone wall, but I'm going to look at the area that I'm going into also. You have to listen to the deer that are moving and try to discern whether they stopped, whether they moved off, the direction they moved off. It makes your stalk, that's called stalking. It makes your stalk a lot harder, So I checked that area right there for squirrels or grouse or anything like that would maybe scare these deer if they started to come over the stone wall, and then they would be running in every direction. And I would probably not get my harvest. There wasn't anything there. I didn't see anything there. So I faced the stone wall, and I crouched down just a little bit, and I could hear the deer moving towards me through the saplings in there. There were some beech nuts in there, and they stopped, and they started. You could tell they were browsing, and I picked up movement on my 9 o'clock on my left-hand side in my peripheral, and I looked over there, and I thought that it was. I have my shotgun up for everybody, just so you know. I was ready to take my deer,
Right.
and I looked over there, and there was something laying next to the tree. I couldn't quite make it out, but I'm figuring that's probably a deer, right?
Yeah.
And some people, the terminology is called fight or flight, and an uncanny valley we're going to use here, and pareidolia. Okay, so your mind is going to start playing little tricks on you. Well, you're out there with a gun. You better be darn certain of what you're doing with that gun. Okay. The other thing too is, in the state of Massachusetts, it's shotgun only, unless you want to be using a primitive firearm. All right. So, and a lot of people use buckshot. So the further away from society that I got, it's out there with 12 gauges or whatever with buckshot, the better I was. But I could hear the deer over there, and this thing was laying down next to this tree at about 35 yards out. Another show that I was on with Sibylla Irwin, she used advanced Google Earth. I estimated 35 yards. I believe that she dropped a pin on my location. She worked on that so hard with me on doing that release there. And she put the marker on the other spot where I said it was laying there, and it kept it about 38 yards. So, I guess my bow and arrow practicing paid off there. I would have hit it, but it wouldn't have been pinpoint.
I've heard Sibylla. I know people that's worked with Sibylla, and they say she is very thorough. Very thorough.
She is extremely thorough. She's a fantastic person. And
Yes.
Ernie, I'm having like deja vu here as you're talking and describing this thing, laying down or whatever. That's actually the first time I've ever heard somebody who had something similar. One of my encounters was the creature was laying down, and I still don't know if it was Bigfoot or not, or what it was, because like you, I can't 100% say that's what it was, but it was so bizarre because it was laying down on its belly looking at me. And like you said, you have that moment of that uncanny valley and everything looking at it. So knowing now that you've worked with Sibylla, I'm definitely going to have to look that up, because wow.
And,
I'll give you a link, because I do have the drawings.
Oh, wonderful. That would be amazing to see.
So, and at this point, if it's on your left, you still have the wind in your favor, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I'm downwind from it.
And see, you could tell he's the hunter. He kept up with that.
I'm
Yeah.
listening. I grew
Oh.
up in the woods, so
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you asked me
And I'm
earlier.
listening to the geography that he's talking about and how
Yeah.
similar it all sounds to Appalachia, southern Appalachia down
Yeah.
here. Like you
Yeah.
talk
It's
about the
amazing.
rock and the brook and everything going by.
Oh,
I'm like
yeah. Mount
in
Laurel.
here making the
Yeah.
picture in my head. So
Yeah.
continue, please. I'm sorry. We're
Yeah. No,
cutting you
that's
off.
okay. Yeah. Well, like I was saying, it's well, in the beginning we were talking, just throw this in there, is you asked me what it is that I go through when I recount this story for people, and you're asking somebody to relive a traumatic event. They are traumatic. It can be traumatic,
It is
whether
100%.
it's
I
a
agree.
combat veteran or whether it's somebody that works for the fire department or EMT. You're asking them to relive an account, and we literally relive the account.
Mhm.
So with that, I'll continue on. It was laying there, and I figured that it was a deer, and this deer was going to give me away. So I drew up on it, figuring it was going to jump up, but I'm still remaining cognizant of those deer on the other side of the stone wall, because I don't want, a bunch of deer just running around, and which one am I going to shoot? And, I don't want to be breaking the law here. But the other thing too is I said it before, and a lot of people just didn't get the point. Is I was told when I was a kid, you don't shoot a deer that's laying down sleeping. For whatever reason, my elders told me that they're gonna know when they're probably trying to put the fear of God in me. They're gonna know when I take it to the check-in station, this thing was sleeping, and that's just not right. So I never.
That's like shooting a turkey out of a tree here. That's a no-no.
It isn't. That is a no-no.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, or beeping your car horn when you first get out there for turkeys. You're not supposed
location,
to.
right. Yep. Ernie's been
Hunters will
hunting a
understand
while. That's right.
So, anyways, I now I can hear the noise on the other side of the stone wall is getting a little bit louder. So I'm kind of back and forth between the two. I got my shotgun ready, and it started crunching up to the tree, just scooching up to that tree more. Now I can tell it's a big bodied animal. And at that point, I'm thinking that it's not a deer. It's too big a bodied. It's not acting like a deer. It's acting like a bear. Okay, the way that it's using that tree to like hide behind or whatever. And I can't see its head because its head is on the other side of that tree. Is it me? So it's got my attention again, and I'm thinking, well, it's a bear. If this thing has cubs or whatever, and it bum rushes me, I don't have a permit, and that's a real pain because now I got to tell a warden or whatever, and then I got to go walk him in there, and he's got to look at it and make sure that I didn't kill it in another state and try to drag it. It's a whole fiasco.
Right.
So again, it's got my attention, but I don't want to lose my deer. I know this thing is not highly likely not a deer, and it crunches up to the tree a little bit more. And now it has a silhouette of a man.
Oh,
That's
no.
exactly what it has, a silhouette of a man on the other side, his head on it. Yeah, he had his arm on my side of the tree, and he started standing up, and that's pretty much when that fiasco on the other side of that stone wall just started erupting over there. And now I'm looking back at him because I'm saying to myself, if these deer come over that stone wall and they go between him and I'm in the open. At least he's got his head around the other side of a tree, and I know he's there. I'm not going to shoot him.
Right.
But he doesn't know I'm here. I need to move myself up just a little bit so that I'm going to get in his peripheral, and I don't want to give my location away to anything on the other side of that stone wall as I move up. So I'm scooched down a little bit. I move up so where I maybe just a couple of feet where I figure I'm going to be in his peripheral. And now he's fully standing, and I looked over there, and I'm like, if that's a man, that's the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen some big men because I used to be a fighter. And my class was 265 open, and I only weighed 192. at the time. That's one. My weight class started at 190 and it went to 265 and they called it open. And there wasn't anybody under 240 in there, you know. But in any case, um, that's I'm looking on the tree for like a little twig, a branch, something on the tree, so that I can put it in my memory bank so I can measure it off. And I seen a piece of moss. I'm going, okay, piece of moss, piece of moss,
Mm.
and I got that down, and that's when all hell broke loose on the other side of that stone wall.
Mm.
7 years ago may seem like a short time to some people, and other people may seem like a long time, but 7 years ago, this community never believed that they ate meat. This community never believed that they got in trees. I used to get a lot of flack. People used to say, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
Well, I got news for you. They do get in trees. They absolutely
Mhm.
do get in trees. They get in places that you would never even dream of, you know, very easily. And they most definitely do eat meat. Okay. So there's a whole different topic right there we can talk about when we're done. But all head broke loose on the other side of Stonewall, and it sounded like they came out of the trees. As I didn't hear branches breaking, I heard limbs snapping. I heard boulders clacking, not rocks. I heard boulders clacking. It was a knockdown, drag out, WWF, whatever you want to call it. It was hell going on the other side of that stone wall, and he put his head around the other side of the tree.
Mm.
He looked over that stone wall, and I'm looking at him, and I just can't believe what I'm looking at. And he caught me. He looked over at me. He looked backward at Stonewall, and then he snapped his head right back at me. He caught me in his peripheral, and he didn't know what the hell I was. He that double take. He did a double take on me. He did not know that I was there, and I got my 12 gauge on him. That's where my 12 gauge is. I'm like, forget about the deer right now. I had semi-auto too, and I'm all loaded with slugs, and I'm like, I said, this. I knew instantly right then and there this was not a human being. This was, as much as it looked like one, is this was definitely a Sasquatch.
Can I ask you a honest
Definitely.
question? Just
Yeah.
nothing to do with it, but yourself where you're at, right?
What's that?
Did they allow y'all to take the plugs out where you could put extra ammo in during deer season, or?
Yes. So I had 5 rounds.
Okay.
I had 5 rounds. It was a Remington shotgun, semi-auto with a Browning barrel. Remington. I still have that shotgun to this day.
That's awesome.
Okay. So when he did that double take on me, he, basically broadsided me. He fully swung his right leg so that he could come around that tree. He let go of the tree and pushed off from it to bring his left foot around, and he squared up with me. He broadsided me right there, and I got my 12 gauge pointed right on his chest, right in the center of his chest. I don't know where I'm going to put around. I don't know what's going to go on. I was highly suspecting. I had a lot of things going on there. I was highly suspecting that these deer were ambushed, and that
Right.
he was on a pinch point.
Right.
So that if anything got over that stone wall
Yep.
and tried to get away, he was going to finish it off.
Yep.
And
Wow, I got goosebumps.
he put both hands in front of him, facing me, elbows into his waist, fingertips straight up, fingers together,
Like this?
about no, like that, perfectly straight, about chest high, and he pumped them twice at me, and I was like,
Communication.
it's
Like
I would have done the same. I would have done the same
Yeah.
thing if you'd have been like mistaken, and I'm like, no, I'm
yeah,
I'm no threat.
exactly.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and that's when he started like looking at me like an adult would look at a toddler, like you understand what I'm doing. So
Right.
you're all going to hear something here about their intelligence factor. We're no longer working on hypothesis. We are working on theory, and we are working on behavioral. And a lot of people don't even know that. Just as it's too much for a lot of people to understand these parts. But when he knew that he could, he started walking towards me. And he took a couple of steps, and he it's called ancient language evolution. It's a hand signal that even orangutans use. They use a closed fist with their pointer finger, and they just point out to you. You know, that's where it probably all started from. And that's what he did. He took his right arm, closed fist, pointer finger out, and stuck that finger right towards the center of my chest, you know, deliberately right to the center of my chest. And then he pointed back at his chest. And it's taken me a long time to understand these things. And no matter which way you look at it, one interpretation was Master of the Woods. One other interpretation was brothers. Another interpretation is we were equal. And most men will understand that if you walked into a bar and you pointed to yourself and you pointed at somebody sitting over there, it means you want them. You two are going to go at it. I'm in here to come get you.
Right.
Okay.
And at the very
Not-
least, it's an acknowledgement that
Yeah.
hey, we're
Yeah.
you know, maybe we can get on the same page and this will end okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he let that one fly at me, and I'm really studying him, and he's looking at me, and he's doing this, and he's studying me. He's looking at me up and down, seeing what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I lowered my shotgun. I completely lowered my shotgun, and he took those opportunities to walk towards me. I could see his hair at the 35-yard mark. I couldn't tell how much hair he had on his face because it blended in so well with his skin tone. His hair looked black. Okay, but I'll get into that. It wasn't black. All right, and I'll get into his skin tone. But he continued walking towards me, and then he's kind of stopped and put both hands out, elbows in, just above the waistline, palms down, and looked at me, and then turned his palms up. I took that to mean that he had no food, that he was asking me for food. Now I'm starting to think there's going to come a time when I'm going to have to parlay this back to this being, this forest person. I hope I don't make him mad. It's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, I hope I don't make off like I'm the idiot in the woods here, because he's understanding a lot more than me. He understands I don't understand their language or anything, and he's using simple pig sign with me. Again, like, he's looking at me, and that fiasco on the other side of the stone wall was pretty much by now over, I believe. You know, it lasted for a little while. It lasted for, like, you know, 3 minutes anyways, which is a really long time for people who've ever fought. They will tell you that 15 seconds doesn't seem like a long time for people. 15 seconds is a long time. Go jump a rope for 15 seconds.
Right.
You'll find out real quick. But
Right.
yeah, he continued walking towards me, and now I can make him out really good. He had blue eyes. He had what I call husky. They were husky blue eyes.
Yeah.
I've only heard of one other encounter like that, two other encounters like that, and one of a different colored eyes, but he had blue eyes. And he continued walking towards me, and now he's going to use another sign on me. I'm checking my wind. I blew out a little bit. I'm trying to check myself, in other words. I still had my stock up, but I had a sling on my shotgun. I could smell my gun oil. There was a compass. I'm just trying to be cognizant of everything. Am I dreaming? What is going on here? I remember a plane flying over, a commercial plane. It was going to Bradley International Airport. Again, I checked my wind direction again. I just want to make sure, you know, like this is crazy. You know, it's one thing seeing a Sasquatch, but it's another thing altogether this happened. I could have got free drinks all day long down at the local bar. I would just say I seen one, but no, this thing's going to make it difficult for me. So he's closing the distance on me, and he gets extremely close, and he points over my shoulder, right, left shoulder. And I'm taking this to mean that he wants to know where I came from. Other people have said, "Oh, he was trying to tell you you're surrounded." No. Let's go back when he did the double take on me on that tree. Is he was shocked that I was standing there, and I believe that's what it was. He was doing was basically asking me where I came from. I'm not sure if that was it particularly at that time, but that's what I'm thinking. And now he's close enough. I can tell you right now that he put his hand out between the two of us so that I had to look straight down. And I'm thinking that something bad is going to happen here. So I have a sidearm on me. So being a trained fighter, I'm going to grab my sidearm in case something goes honky on me here. I'm going to pull it and put it right up underneath his chin and let him have it. I don't know what else I'm going to do. So I'm going for my sidearm without moving my shoulder. I'm thinking I'm being sneaky. And my palm was just touching my grip on my pistol. I had a 9mm on me, and he picked up the body movement. He knew what I was doing, and he had his palm out to me, his hand out between the two of us. He wanted me to look at his palm. And now that he picked up my movement with my right hand going on for my pistol, he didn't like that. He took his other hand, he tapped his palm. He wanted me to look at his palm. I had already been looking at his arm. I'd looked at his forearm. Every place that they have hair on their body, you have hair on yours. Same exact places. If you look at your forearm is the hair thins out on your forearm. Exactly the same thing. The back of its hand. Same thing with the back of his hand, and particularly men. You can see that your knuckles don't have any hair on them, hopefully, and you got hair back here, and then the little hair. Same exact thing. People ask me if he smelled. He didn't smell at all. He looked groomed, and there are some of us that have been extremely close to them, and very few of us, and we all pretty much say the same thing: is they didn't stink. Yeah.
Ernie, can one of my buddies here saw one when he was about 13 or 14, and he got kind of caught where he couldn't run, and his brother ran. He was within 20 yards, and he said the same thing you did. He said he looked like he was groomed. He looked like he was clean, that he took care of. We think of these monsters and mud everywhere or whatever. He said he had the prettiest hair that,
You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to be close, to see that.
Yeah, to see that. Yeah. And I've heard that quite a few times, and I've heard they stink. I heard they're dirty, and I've heard stories that they actually had feces sticking to them. Go out to a frog pond, go somewhere around a frog pond, roll around in the mud near a frog pond. You're going to stink. Or go where there's skunk cabbage in the swamp. You're going to stink. Yeah. Okay, so that could play into that too. On bugs and things like that to keep the bugs away. But he was that close to me, and when he tapped his hand, I looked back at his palm. He wanted me to look at his palm. And I took it to mean that I needed to study his palm. And I'm studying his palm. I'm looking for something on his palm. I had somebody ask me if he had a scar on his palm. That I don't remember. I would have remembered an abnormality like that. Maybe hypnosis would help. But the meaning of the scar on his palm would have been the covenant. That he would have had a covenant. And some people say maybe he was asking you for his knife to make the covenant, or asking me for my knife to make the covenant. No, I'm not pulling my knife. He didn't like it when I was reaching for my gun. A knife isn't gonna. No.
This is kind of a feeling out period. It sounds like between each of you. He's trying to say you can trust me, and neither one of you trust each other yet. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating that he's trying to communicate with you in as I'm interpreting it, almost positive way instead of like hey, you've done showed up in my territory, roar, get out of here, kind of.
Me my lunch, man.
Yeah. He's trying to read me.
Wow.
And I'm trying to read him. I'm trying to also right before I reached for my handgun, I was trained fighter, I'm going to watch his shoulders. I'm going to watch for any type of a movement. And I can tell you right now, I'm glad it didn't pan out that way, obviously.
Right.
But
Hmm.
studying his palm, I can tell you this is
Well,
Go ahead. You want to ask a
but
question?
no, I'm just saying you're training. I can tell you're training. I worked for the sheriff's department for a couple of years right out of high school. So I was inside the jail with, I might be in a place with 30 people and watching that body language and watching those little movements and those little shifts of weight to save your tail.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All movements, everything, little nuances will give them away.
Yes, sir.
But I'm studying
Wow.
his palm, and his palm look exactly like ours. His fingers look exactly like ours, exactly, except body proportionate. If you're 20 feet tall, you better not have hands the size of my hands.
So,
Yeah,
so it
yes,
wasn't
you
like
got
an
it.
ape. It wasn't like an
No,
ape where
sir.
the thumb was down here.
Absolutely no, sir. It
Wow.
was not. No, sir. It absolutely was not. I know some people have a cast like that, but if you look at their cast that they have, you'll see that it's more of a fist cast where
Right.
they grab the ground. And if you ask them where they got it, where they were, you're going to find out that they were in a swampy area where there was something something growing on the ground, either acorns in the ground, which they will try to dig up because they watch the squirrels, or they're digging up skunk cabbage. But I do know of one casting that it is a fist. And if we make a casting of our own fist,
Yeah.
guess what we're going to have? We're going to have a short little thumb area, and that's exactly what that casting is. So
Mhm.
no.
Did,
And I was go ahead.
no, I got a good question here. I'm thinking the same thing. Did they have lines in his palms just like us?
Yeah, I was
Everything.
thinking the same question.
Just getting to that.
Okay.
The only thing that I noticed that was different is it had no lifeline. It's the only
Mm.
thing. And I've learned later on in life that there are people supposedly that are born with no lifelines, but it had no lifeline. And it was
Mm.
its right hand. It had no lifeline. And its palms were
Interesting.
like yellowish colored. The palms were. The rest of the skin on it was like not black, like Jamaican, okay, like extremely dark, and it would actually
Mhm.
take on a different hue in the light. Its hair was about 5 to 6 inches long, depending on where you looked on the body.
Mhm.
Some of it was a little bit shorter than that. Even if you looked on the forearms, uh, that point it's out towards me and stuff. There was the skin tone. Looking at the skin tone on him, it looked thick. It didn't look leathery, but it didn't look thin like ours. It looked thick, like it could take a little bit of abuse.
Yeah.
There's people that ask me if I've seen callus. Well, if anybody has callus hands, you'll see that callus looks kind of yellowish. So maybe their whole hand was yellowish. But like I said, I could see I could see everything in its hand, everything, the dermal ridges. I could see the palms, the lines, its fingernails clean. They weren't claws; they were fingernails.
Mhm.
And that's when I took the opportunity to. I knew that point was going to come. I had to parlay something back to him because he's looking at me, waiting for me to give him something that I understand. And I gave him the hand signal that we were brothers, or both masters of the woods. We were equal. And then I gave him the hand signal that I didn't have any food. I didn't ask him for food. I just didn't have any food. And I gave him the hand signal that over his shoulders, and that was it right there. As he looked at me and he just kind of nodded towards me. Yes, I seen the whites of his eyes, when he moved his eyes as he was checking me out. And at that instant, when I did the last hand gestures to him, um, and he nodded a little bit towards me, he turned just a little bit to look over that stone wall, and he pulled both hands up to his mouth like a megaphone, and he let out 3 whoops, a second and a half in between. up until that point, I don't know. I don't know anybody today that actually seen them. So I used to tell people 7 years ago that you hear a whooping a noise. How do you know it's them? If you've never seen a dog before in your entire life and you hear barking and a cat comes running out of the brush,
Yeah.
don't tell me you don't think that that's what was making that noise until the dog comes running out. You've never seen him do that before.
Do you think you earned his respect by being such a fluid? You snuck up on. You did something that probably hardly anybody did, and it's because of your preparation. And you knew the wind. You were double stepping. You were doing all that stuff. You think it was more of like let's say, because a lot of these are surprise encounters.
Yeah.
You both were doing the same thing,
Yeah, we were hunting the same deer.
right?
Exactly. Yeah, I had actually got I was at a powwow one time. I was always looking for somebody to talk to
Yes, sir.
that would understand it, and who was the best people that you're going to go and talk to, and that'd be Native Americans. I'm part Native American, and I wound up talking to a very famous chief. His name is Chief Ernest. He passed away a little while ago, but he's the great grandson of Sitting Bull, one of the only two Sioux warriors at the Battle of Little Bighorn. There's Crazy Horse and there was Sitting Bull, and I was invited back to talk to him at a powwow one-on-one, and later on to get up and for the combat veterans and dance around the sacred fire with him and the rest of the veterans. And he asked me a lot of questions and told me a lot of things, and one of the things he told me was that I walked in two worlds. He said, that's why this probably happened to you. And he says, they have always known you and they've always watched out for you. Whatever that means. I searched for that, and with all the things that are out in the woods right now, who knows, maybe they're protecting me against that. I'm just saying that's what he said to me. And perhaps maybe indeed I do walk in two worlds, and that's what it didn't understand is how I got to where I was. And the only thing that I can think of is because I was two-stepping, I was actually trying to become a deer or a four-legged animal. So maybe that veil lifted.
I have a question. So
yeah,
have you always felt during your life you've been shown things that other people haven't been shown?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Or seen things that other people see besides Sasquatch, obviously.
I have some people ask. We don't know. Do you have M's in your palms, Ernie?
Sorry, what?
Do you have M's, like the lines, the M?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a high number of us that are in chat right now, and we've been drawn to each other. I don't know what it means. Yeah. If you can tell us later, whatever. I want to keep in contact with you for sure.
You'd have to understand too. There are absolutely, no matter what anybody thinks, there are no coincidences in this world. Absolutely zero. If you sit there long enough and you try to figure out why something happened to you, you will come up with an answer. Whether it's your fault, somebody else's fault, whatever, you will come up with an answer. But he did those 3 whoops, a second and a half in between each whoop.
Pretty quick.
Exactly. And people that they may ask the question, how do I know that? Well, if you're musically inclined, or if you've ever been out really shooting like a sheriff or anything, you're keeping track your rhythm, and you're keeping track of how many rounds you fired off. So you know noise. Okay.
Yep. You can recount those rounds. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that was 45. He's probably out maybe one in the pipe. Sorry. I understand.
Yeah. So he looked, after he did that, he looked back at me and he bowed his head this time to me.
Wow.
And then he looked back over that stone wall and he whistled, and that's the same whistle that I used. It's the same whistle that other members of our hunting party used. We've had people pulled away from our hunting party by listening to those whistles, because you spread out. And if you hear a certain whistle, then you know that one of your members of your hunting party is calling you over, because we have fresh track, we have fresh sign, whatever the case may be, or we had just jumped a couple of deer and we're going to start pushing, driving, and tracking to close the gap on stalking. And he whistled and he made a hand signal that to whomever was on the other side of that stone wall. And now it's 100% sure, as I was right, there was more than just him. on the other side of the stone wall, and as he bowed his head to me, he looked back at the stone wall and he gave a hand signal with his right arm to whoever was on the other side of the stone wall, and he pointed back in the direction that he came from. He pointed out there, and he turned to me one last time and bowed his head and turned and started walking away. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, I think I want to follow him. I think I want to track him. I want to know where they're going. I want
Yeah.
to know more. I mean, I goofed up here. I think I told him to skedaddle, and it wasn't the most brilliant thing to do, because we could have sat down and maybe shared a cigarette, or who knows what.
Can I ask you a
know.
question real quick, Mr. Ernie?
Yeah.
Oh, when you talking about it turning to look back over or turning about, did it have a neck at all, or was it did the Batman turn or anything, or did it actually turn its head?
Well, it kind of did both. It could turn its head.
Yeah.
It could turn its head, because, like I said, it did a double take on me. When it was next to that tree there.
Yeah.
That's what mine did when it acknowledged me. It turned its head it turned its head, but also it turned its shoulders too.
Yeah.
It torqued its midsection, but it did actually the first move and the same thing happened. It stepped out. It didn't know I was there, but I'd hunted those woods like you from 8 years old to 14.
Mm-hmm.
And when it acknowledged me, the head started first and then it rotated. And then it was like, he didn't care, because I think he knew that I was supposed to be there. Anyway,
there's no wasted body movement.
No.
If you want to drive through Boston, you see somebody from Boston turn their head like that, that is the directional light. That's where they're going, long before that directional light turns on. Now, if you think about it in this situation here, if he's going to turn his head and part of his body, if he has to move in that direction, he doesn't have to wait for the body to catch up or the head to catch up. He's gone. He's going to move. But I forgot to mention
every
too,
movement is intentional.
Yes, when he was standing there and showing me his palm and everything, then he turned. I stood. I'm 6'3", or I used to be 6'3". I stood a little bit above his bicep, but below his shoulder. Wow. He was absolutely massive. He was absolutely the epitome of somebody that was, cut up. I hope people understand that. Ripped. He was like superhuman standing there.
I've got some questions that people will kick my rear end if I don't ask, if that's okay.
Good. That's okay.
But since you were that close, I've only talked to 2 people that were that close. And so the nose, was it gorilla-like or hooded like ours?
Question. I'm going to explain that. Because one of the things that Sibylla Irwin would ask, and you have to be able to explain that. You try to explain to somebody who's never met your mom what your mom looks like. Okay?
Right, exactly.
Now, there isn't anything like apple pie like, unless it's not an apple pie. Okay, right. If that's what you're saying. If you want to say gorilla like, I need to ask the question to anybody else out there: what is gorilla like? So, this is the explanation that I gave to Sibylla. Okay, the explanation is it's a cross between a Native American, an African American, like Neanderthal, and a boxer's nose, just a little bit pushed in.
Yeah.
Same thing. Okay.
Hey, you painted the perfect picture for me.
Yeah.
That's
and where at the distance that it was at originally, because of the skin tone, you could not tell that the where the hair started and where the hair stopped. You would have thought it had maybe a whole hairy face. Right. Until it moved a little bit closer, because of the color of the skin. The hair turned out it was not black. It was extremely dark brown. When it had its hand out, I could see its forearm and the back of its hand. I was detecting that right down near the skin where the hair goes in, it was like a red tint to it because of the way the sun shined on it. So I knew it wasn't black. I knew it had to be extremely dark brown. Okay. But
what about we hear people all the time with different encounter, and the distance does make a difference. Because especially when you see a Bigfoot for the first time, you're not measuring out the length of the arm and all that. You're freaking out in your head, and so with you, you're probably former military. You're probably with observation skills that you have, with the techniques you were using to keep yourself in the moment instead of flipping out. And um, I kind of know what that's like. But so the conical head thing, was it a little bit of one, none at all, rounded, just more like us?
More, more like us.
Do you think
Definitely
that
more
there
like
could
us.
be? I hear people that's been doing this for a long time and been all over the country, that there may be 4 or 5 different types. Do you believe
Yeah,
that?
we come up with three
Okay.
different types. You have lowland. We're just gonna say halfway up the mountain and
Yeah.
top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's a reason for them being like that, and then they do come down all together. So you no longer have family units. You have, your clan units, things like that. And then you have different areas of the country, and you're going to have to understand the geography of this country. Like at one point between the Great Lakes and the Gulf of Mexico, we have what they called the Great Inland Sea. A lot of people are unaware of
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Okay, so what if they were separated? And what we have is we have interbreeding going on. So now we got a couple of weird looking ones, okay, that are acting a little strange. If you know what I mean. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
those things definitely go on. And of course, if you hunt deer in Florida, they are a lot smaller than deer in Ohio.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
so those
Just
things go
exactly.
on.
And
Yeah, I use the bear analogy all the time at the museum when people ask me about that kind of stuff. It's like, you'd have bears down here. The black bear are very small in comparison to the grizzly bear. And then you have the polar bears up in Alaska who are even bigger than
Yeah,
that. So it's a
yeah,
good analogy.
Ernie.
yeah,
So here's what I say all the time. I can tell people how tall, like you said, I picked out a limb, uh,
yeah,
even at 14 years old. I'm trying to get what information I can, what my mind's letting
yeah,
me. Um, I can tell people it was between 7 and 7.5 foot. I can tell people that it was Hershey chocolate brown, reddish brown. I can tell people all this stuff, but I cannot get across the mass
yeah,
to them. I mean
yeah.
that, um, and
You
you
can
can
go
say
and
when you
yeah,
say
you
the
can go.
hands. Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
you can go stand next to Shaq, and you can stand next to Andre the Giant, and you still aren't going to understand this until you put your hands on another human being that's bigger than you. You might even look at them like, oh, yeah, the small man syndrome. Oh, yeah, I'm going to be able to do this. Only a trained fighter is going to be able to look at somebody and understand it. There's a lot of muscle going on there, too. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of weight going on there. Most men out there will say, oh, I can bench press 200 pounds. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can probably do 100 push-ups too. All right, and you've never lifted. It's highly unlikely that you could lift bench press 200 pounds. You should go to the gym after the show's over with, and just to go
I know.
see if you can. Unless you have a very physical job that you're doing, you're
Right.
more than likely not going to. But this thing proceeded to leave my location, and after he bowed his head to me one last time, and like I said, I stood just above his bicep, up below his shoulder,
Wow.
and he went back out towards that tree that I first spotted him at, and he's going beyond that tree, and he gets out to probably, I don't know, 55, maybe 60 yards away from me, straight out away from me, and keep in mind that he did that hand signal for whomever on the other side of the stone wall, and now I hear it sounds like a freight train coming. It sounds
Mhm.
like something is making its way through those saplings, the beech nut grove on the other side of that stone wall, and is making towards him. Okay, it is like a rhinoceros coming, and that's when I picked up movement. Um, it was like a blonde, not a total blonde color, but like a, a brownish color, a sandy brownish color. I call it like a cinnamon color, and I knew where I was watching where it was going to be jumping the stone wall on that side down there. You couldn't see the stone wall because it was going down the other side near Drake Brook, but it had to jump that path there and jump the stone wall and the path. And it did that, and it jumped Drake Brook, and that's when I fully picked up its whole body. Once it jumped Drake Brook, and it's headed right towards him. And when I say fast, I'm talking, I've shot deer on the run. And people have heard stories out there that they've been clocked at 52 miles an hour. Just talked on a show last night, and that lady actually clocked it in her car at 52 miles an hour. And I know they can definitely run faster than that. This thing was elbows and heels. I mean, it's straight out and smooth as silk. Like there didn't matter what was in its way. It was like I don't know. Not some people say cartoonish. It was like a parkour master.
Right.
It had to be coming through those saplings by using the saplings themselves to get up that speed to sling himself out, like just tearing through it to beat feet out there. That one that was up close to me that was now out there, he turned kind of kitty corner towards me, like 45 to me, and he was watching that other one coming towards him, and the other one come right over to him. And that one was above his shoulder, not as tall as him, and it was cinnamon colored. And they started. I mean, I'm still looking at it, thinking I still want to follow him. This is unbelievable,
Right.
you know. And
So,
they started.
so he accomplished his mission of making you feel comfortable with them being there with you. Maybe.
Yeah. I think when you hear this, you're going to say, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there was something else that was going on there.
Sorry, I'm full of
It's
questions.
okay. It's okay, Roger. No, they started that, and mind you, I'd never heard those Sierra sounds.
Right.
I'd never heard that before. And they started this chattering, this samurai chattering, and it was like, because I had to study Japanese, it was like, am I hearing some Japanese words in there? Or am I hearing? Because if you look at Cherokee, the Cherokee language, they have some Hebrew in there. They have some parts of the
Mhm.
Hebrew alphabet in there. And I'm saying, am I picking up parts of Hebrew going on here? What is this? You know? And that big one, he was looking at that smaller one, and they were just like do back and forth. And then that big one just pointed me out, ratted me right out, pointed his finger right directly at me, and that littler one had to bend down a little bit, look underneath this branch on this sapling to see me, and he did a double take on me, like he didn't know. So I think, and people told me this, I think they're right, is the big one was like, dude, you let somebody get, how did this individual get through you guys over to this location and surprise me like that? And the littler one must have been going, well, come on, whatever. And that's when he ratted me out, pointed at me, and that was pretty much it. The big one took his pointer finger again, pointed to the little one right towards the chest, and basically told him to do a semicircle to the right around me. And then he pointed to his own chest and signified that he was going to do a semicircle around to my left-hand side. So now I got my spidey senses, they starting to tingle a little bit there. I'm like, yeah, they don't want me to follow, and I'm not going to go over that stone wall to verify a kill over there. Obviously they got one, but what I do have to do is I have to go over to that tree, and I have to verify on that tree how tall that he was, and I also have to try to find tracks, because I want to verify his height by his stride. Also, because it was an effortless stride. He didn't run away from me. He didn't skip away from me. He didn't fast walk or speed walk away from me. It was just a lackadaisical, hey, yeah, I'm okay. And he walked out to that point to wait for that other one to come over. So I went over to the tree, and I found a piece of moss, and I stood next to the tree, and I put my hand on top of my head, and I stepped back a little bit. And then from there, I measured up with using my finger. I measured all the way up 7'8" tall. I figured him at 7'8" and north of 500 pounds. I've had people say at that size and everything, he had to be more than 600 pounds. Well, I'll go 550, because I thought he was 500, but that's still huge.
Well, you're probably doing like a lot of us do that are realistic. When people ask me, I go on the low side, because I don't want to I don't want to overdo it. And the thing, and where I have a problem at with the one I saw wasn't like Patty, the barrel chested one. This one was athletic looking, narrower in the waist, and so that takes a lot of mass away in that area. So I have said conservative. I can't even say it, y'all. Y'all know what I mean.
Conservatively.
There you go. 600 to 700 pounds, and because of the bulls and the hogs and stuff that I've seen, and you kind of try to go with that. But was the one you saw? Did he look really athletic? Or
extremely more athletic than any human being I've ever seen in my life. I mean, and when I say athletic, I'm talking let's say Navy SEAL athletic.
Yeah.
Because you get guys that are just huge and jacked, but they're not worth anything. They can't do anything. They have no stamina or anything. This looked like it had the stamina and the strength to do what was necessary to do.
Working muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So my next move off of that was I was looking for a track now, because now I had its height. I wanted to compare that with its stride, and there was a dried out vernal pool right there. You could see where the old ferns were and stuff right around there, and it actually sloped down. It was like a little knoll right there. So now I know that he had belly crawled up to that tree. He was setting up on an ambush point. And I found some plant life that was smashed down. So I knew that was his tracks. I knew that was his runway when he left my area. So I decided from where I was standing by the tree, what I was going to try to do is kind of like make an effort to land in his track. I couldn't. So I just took maybe a half a step back, and I tried again, and still not anywhere is really close to it. And then I took a couple steps back and did a little running start, and I still fell short of it. So I know that he was roughly 7'8" tall, maybe a little over, but 7'8".
And you could have said that with just trying the height thing or whatever, but I like the way you went along and tried to confirm with other things too. Yeah,
agreed.
I knew that someday this day was going to come. Hopefully, if I live through that, and that people are going to ask a lot of questions, I want to have as much information as I possibly have, and I want people to understand that the information that I'm sharing with you is the fact that's how intelligent they really are.
Well, that's what I tell people. Like, why you do it? Why you do a little YouTube show? And I said, look, this is the new way of documenting things. 50 years from now, somebody might watch one of my shows and hear guests like Ernie. And I finally put it all together, that little piece. Amanda used that too, the piece of the puzzles. And we all have little small pieces. And if we don't talk, we can't put it together. So I'm off my bucket now. So go ahead, Ernie. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That was pretty much the end of the encounter. Anyways, and you folks are exactly right. It's these little pieces, as I was digging in to find out, is there anybody else out there that's had seen any kind of sign language whatsoever? And people, when they give their encounters, they tend to maybe leave a little piece out, and you can't lead them, into saying things, but you'll find out, like maybe it crossed in front of a car and it put his hand out, it was crossed in front of a car. Right. Sorry, that's a hand signal. Okay.
So I have a friend.
It waved.
And I had a friend that almost hit one in a Jeep one night. Him and his wife were riding, had the doors off, had the top off. When he passed it, this thing stepped out in front of him almost. Eric swerves, and then he looks up, and the light is going up this thing. He didn't believe in Bigfoot before this, and it's in this county when this happened in 2008. But what I found fascinating while he was telling the story, he said it was so close, Roger. I was looking up its nostril, and I tried to. He said it flinched, and that lip curled up, and it flinched away like, oh no, I'd have messed up and got hit, And out of everything he told, that one thing was like, I've hit animals before by accident. They didn't flinch. They didn't know they were about to get hit. They didn't try to, a squirrel will try to react or whatever. But that sounds like us. That's what
it does.
So, see, the story you're telling, I know you probably were worried about us, like, what's he talking about? But we've talked to a lot of people. Amanda's probably talked to 10,000 more people than I have with her job. And
a lot, yes.
The really good encounters, the really good recounts are full of things you've never heard before.
It's the small details, like we just mentioned.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Mr. Ernie, how that encounter ended up parting, how did you get out of the woods away from them
Yeah,
to do all
yeah.
that?
Well, after I was done trying to jump into the track to verify the height that I measured off on the tree, I figured that was my day right there, and that I
Yeah.
needed to, I needed to leave because they were flanking me. It made me very
Right.
uneasy to know that they weren't just flanking me; they were tactically flanking me,
Mhm.
one on each side.
So you
Okay,
think they were
and
trying to usher you away?
it is a behavioral aspect that they absolutely do, and people used to, some people would say that there's never one of them in there. You are correct. There's always two of them in there. And if you think about it, if I wanted to distract you, if we had to cross a road and that road was occupied by maybe a sentry or something like that,
Mhm.
well, I'm going to be on the other side while you try to cross. If that person spots what he thinks is you, I'm going to throw a rock behind him,
Yep.
and he's going to look that way, and then you get up and run.
Yep.
Okay, they do a lot of that. Okay, people say, well, they tried to hit me with a rock. No, there is no try to hit you with a rock. If it did hit you with a rock, it would have been completely by accident, because
Right.
they can hit whatever that they're aiming at,
They
and to them it's a joke. Is the younger ones, the juveniles, will play with people. They'll go to these
yeah.
campgrounds and stuff. And I
Mhm.
know people are hearing this for the first time, but it's an absolute fact. Is this what they
Uh,
do? They teach their young a lot of these things on how to control us. Like, look at the funny humans,
I've
you know.
learned that now this sounds crazy, Ernie. 10 years ago, I would be like, I'll never be discussing this, but the people that I've talked to, and the experiences that we've had since we started going out since 2020, um, I found that the juveniles are probably more playful.
Mhm, mhm.
And the
They
thing
are.
is, when people
just like
say,
other teenagers.
and when they say, what threw a rock I've had a couple things thrown, but that's not the word I use. I say tossed because it's all about the arc.
Right.
If you throw a baseball at my head, it's
Yeah.
different than if you toss a softball at my head, right? So
Exactly right. Yeah,
that's what.
if hunters think back and you've seen fawns, the mother could be right up on a hill watching, and they'll let that fawn get pretty close to you,
Yep.
and that's how they teach those fawns things. All
Yep.
animals will do that, and then they'll correct the other animal to back off or whatever the case may be.
You,
So,
Ernie,
go ahead.
you know what I heard. People know this story, but I'll tell you real quick. What I heard one night, in the woods beside me. I pretty much I thought they were there that night, but I cupped my ears so I could hear really good,
Yeah.
and it's been quiet. And I heard, and we think we haven't laid eyes on them yet, but we have a lot of stuff that's happened that points to that. Um, what I heard was a whoop whoop, not a whoop, but a light whoop whoop. And then
Yeah.
directly in the woods was like, "Mama, like stop! They're right there. Shut up." That
Hmm.
didn't hit me until you get home, you roll things around your head. I said that sounded like me and my mama if I was little and I
Yeah.
made a noise I wasn't supposed to, and she corrected. Now this is just me spitballing from the
Mhm.
Yeah.
what I heard, but when I started thinking like that, that made sense to me. And some other things happened that we had a scream, um, that I talked to Kumbo about it, and he mimicked it, and I'm like, yes, and he said that was a male juvenile, and he's messing with you. So
Yeah.
anyway, it you when you hit on these things that I've talked to people about or things happen to me, I can't help but be excited and interrupt you. Please forgive me.
That's
So
no, that's okay. I'm glad you're doing that, because you're actually comparing it. It's making sense to you, because
yeah,
it's really that easy if you start to think very simplistically. They're very subtle in a lot of things they do. People can say that they were chased out of the woods. Come on, you just heard how fast these things can run.
right.
They didn't chase you. They
No,
they they
Mhm.
helped you
they
willingly
they
get
flew.
out of the
You
woods.
get you trying to say
Okay.
the same ancestors, like, just
Okay.
push you along.
Yeah. Now, mind you, if you want to go in there and it's maybe, we'll call it breeding season or something like that,
Right.
and you pose, maybe, because remember, You are more like them and they're more like us in what everybody wants to believe in. And we'll get into that in a second here. And when you think on those terms, you're a threat. Walk into a bar late on a Friday night and you watch how some of the drunks in there are going to act towards you. If you walk in like you got money and there's a couple of pretty women in there, whatever, they're immediately going to get jealous of you. And that is the same thing that happens in the animal kingdom, even with chickens. The simplest barnyard animal, a chicken, that rooster isn't going to like you at all. Okay, because
It's all about
you're
the pecking
yeah.
order, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And it could be feed. We have instances where that X is set up. We know that they don't want you to really go there. One of the gentlemen that's in the area where I had my encounter doing his research, I think it was about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. His name is JJ Squatman. His real name is Jeff. Okay. And he had an X set up on the brook. So he was walking down the path. He couldn't cross over the brook. So I told him, sit down right there and leave your gift there, whatever it is. And after about a week, we talked again. And I said, any changes? And he goes, absolutely. He says, there's changes. He said, the X is now set up over the brook. So I can't go up the brook. I said, let me guess. I said, there's a little marshy area up there. He goes, yep. I says, and there's cattail in that marsh? He goes, yeah. He says, exactly. He goes, you're like a wizard, Ernie. How do you know that? I said, well, didn't you? And people are going to go, really? Think about this now, what I'm going to tell you. He has the handprints on the back of his car, on the window of his car. And ironically, he has the sticker of the Sasquatch handprint that's like this. Yeah, everybody's seen that in the back of some people's cars. And that's really one of the hand signals he gave me. All fingers together, palms face me, hand up. Well, guess what? He has a full handprint right underneath that on the windshield, on the back window of his car. Well, listen to this, okay? During the springtime is one of the most powerful edible plants that you can have for medicinal purposes for a lot of reasons is the cattail. And you have to pull the first 3 leaves off. And what's in those 3 leaves? It's like aloe. Okay, so think about that. If you get that all over your hands, he's had a lot of activity around the house. Okay, so those things happen, or you might see that the hair might be greasy, or whatever the case may be. But that was their food source. So if you're going to go in there and you're going to think you're going to take maybe a sigh in there and sigh down all their cattails, they might get a little bit upset about you. And if you don't want to leave the area, then they're going to ramp it up a little bit. A lot of things that they do to ramp it up a little bit, and until it gets to the point is where they're warning you that we could accidentally bean you with a small rock or something to get you out of here, because there has been cases like that.
Well, we like I said, everybody here knows, but we're talking here, like I said, like on the back porch sipping on tea, right? So we had the rock tossed to us in 2020. I didn't have anything happen for 35 years. I mean, there was nothing. I stayed in the woods and nothing happened. Came to a new place and we got pushed out. So we felt like we needed to leave. But it was open day of hunting season last year. We were tired. We were coming out, and normally in that spot, we walk heavy, we talk, we kick stuff on the way out, because I don't want to do what you did, right? And but there was a grass. There was a pathway of grass, short grass, and we were so tired. Me and my son, he's 27. We were easing down through there. Enough daylight I could see. I had my flashlight in my hand, but the hill to the right was dark, and we were just walking down through there. And I don't know if it winded us or whatever, but it sounded like a quarter turn, heavy footfalls, 2 feet, and turns toward us and went, whoa, it wasn't a vicious one like I've heard before in another location, but it was more like, dang guys, you know what I mean? Like an old man was standing there and you walked up beside him. Yeah, that's what I got. Well, my son starts with his gun up with the scope and everything. Want to look, and I put my hands on top of the scope and I pushed it down. So you know what we've been told about that? Now, it's funny that you say this, Ernie. I've never been told this, but I felt the need. I did this. I went, hey,
Yeah.
hey, we're
Yeah.
leaving, and we turned around and we walked off, and nothing happened. So
Just that acknowledgement.
Exactly.
It's a basic form. If I go to, you can pick a country out, and somebody's coming to me. If my right hand is usually where you shake the weapon, you know what I mean. If you show you have nothing, you're like, hey, how you doing? And then they don't, you're in trouble. But that's basic forms of communication for everybody, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's two guys that know Tim and Eric Vogel, Richie and Wojo, banter with Richie and Wojo, and they get out there and they are very serious, and we do a lot of talking, and he's had a lot of activity up around the house and everything, and these are a few of the things that we went over, and it got ramped up when they started using one of the sign languages. Okay, but they will get slightly aggressive to get you out of there for whatever reason it is, because let's face it, it would not be to their benefit if they were discovered, and then, because what would we do? We would send somebody in there to get them out, because that's what used to happen back in the day. The elder men would go in there and figure out what it is.
Just to your point, I made a funny post, or I thought it was funny, in Woodwalker on their private page just yesterday, I think it was. I thought I'd seen Legend of Boggy Creek, but apparently I'd seen something else. And I was watching it, and people making fun of me, which that's cool. That's why I did it. But watching that movie, when the first encounters wasn't that bad, but the more people shot at it, the worse they got. Don't know if it's true like that, but that would make sense. I'm thinking, man, every time somebody sees him, they're putting buckshot in him. So, I would be irritated too.
Right.
There's another movie that's out like that with Ryan Cavallini was the producer on it, and I can't think of the name of it right now. But in the end, it's based on a true encounter. And they actually show a picture of what the two brothers actually saw, and that available right now to hold up to the screen. I can show you the first picture that was ever drawn on what I seen, and the gentleman, he's passed away, that was drawing it, actually refused to finish it because it was not meeting the Scooby-Doo, I call it, okay, of drawings that were out there. Everybody, they want to say, well, it doesn't look like Patty if there's a picture, a real one on it. It reminds us of Paradol circles or whatever. Well, nobody ever stopped, not too many ever stopped to try to think that Patty was a matronly female, that there was another reason why she was there, or she was taking up the tail end, or whatever the case may be, because we all change. If we're blessed and we're pretty when we're young in school, then we're going to grow up and be ugly. Okay. If it's the opposite, and you're going to grow up, you're going to be a beautiful person. Okay. The same with them. Our facial features change over time. That's just, you wouldn't recognize anybody if you hadn't seen them in 40, 50 years, because your jaw changes, everything changes on you. Which I didn't mention is that, yes, I had a brow ridge. Okay. But the part of the behavioral aspects of these things is uncanny, and they will use this sign language. I more than believe, okay, that your federal government does know about these, because let's face it, what would the benefit be if they did know about it? The area that I was in, nobody was supposed to be in there, particularly on the Cobble Mountainside, and having my own store up there in Blandford, we would occasionally try to go in there and fish in there, because great fishing in there. And several of the people that I knew and had been picked up, they'll send the army helicopter in there, and they will take you off the ice. They will get you out of the woods out there. I had been in there with one of my friends that I grew up with since we knew each other since we were 3 years old. And we got set up in there, and sure enough, here comes a helicopter right on top of our position. They were looking for us. How did they know where to go? They had ground sensors. So if you had ground sensors and you knew I was there, then you most definitely knew they were
Absolutely.
there. What is the benefit? One of the benefits is like right now in Florida, David, I forget his name, skunk apes down there in Florida with Marie Dumont and Dave.
Yeah.
They have a
David
problem.
Chili, I think is his name.
Yeah, you're right. They have a problem right now going on that they want to. That some people want to come in here and set up these cell towers. Well, first of all, it's within like 1,000 yards of an indigenous village. It's there's other animals in there. It's going to upset a lot of things. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, let's just say we have almost an extinct a lizard. We know that people have been stopped from building houses in certain areas if you can show that lizard's in there. If they were to show, and if they were to recognize the intelligence value, I hope everybody's catching this right now. You're going to have to classify them as being like us.
You have to.
As being a lost tribe. And if you do that, yeah, you are going to have to set aside that area. Not saying that you can't go in there. And other people want to argue the fact, well, now so what's going to stop somebody from going in there and killing one? I can tell you what's going to stop you from going in there and killing one. Okay, because if you're familiar with the experiment called the seventh tag, I think it's the seventh tag. They tagged one of these once. Okay, and without getting into the whole explanation, you can look it up or you can send me a message and I'll send you the video. Okay, but what had happened is they started tracking it using this tag, and they started chasing it, and the closest they could get to it was a quarter mile. And guess what? They were using ATVs, and this thing was going effortlessly through the woods. By the time they get to one ridge, it was already going up the next ridge. They never ever could actually see it, even though they picked it up on thermal from maybe a drone or something like that. They couldn't even keep up with it. So you're looking at, if you do go in there and you think that you're going to try hunting one or anything like that, you're out of your mind. Don't get all blustered up and things like that. Just do us all a favor, go down to the local bar and prove your manhood down there first before you decide you're going to take on Andre the Giant. Only really, really fit, because they are not going to put up with that. These things are highly intelligent. So if you look at it in that aspect, that's going to move the football. We need to move that football down that field a little bit further, so that we can say this is a habituation area. They are living in these areas here, and we need to go into these areas and study them and find out what is it that they have for us. Did anybody ever stop to think, do they have a message for you?
Right.
They're trying to teach us, because there is, Native Americans, they use the word legend, and the legend really is history. Okay. But we're going to call it legend or prophecy, that in the final days, if you look at where the sacred fire is and where the entrance is always facing, in the final days, Big Brother will come again to dance around the fire one last time before the final battle between good and evil. Did anybody ever think of how our DNA has been changed, over throughout time, and when that it was changed, and what we have lost? And we've lost a lot of our awareness because we can't use the pineal gland. Maybe they have
Ernie
something.
speaking our language.
Yes, he is.
You're with family here, Ernie. Come on.
like I said, is I knew a long time ago that there was a message here, and how do you come out with something like this, but very slowly? Is you all have to accept what's going on to begin with. I mean, 38 years ago let me tell you something right now, that the big names in this field right now, yeah.
Can I share something with you that I really ain't shared the whole story, and I'll make it quick. So you going through what you've gone through, going through what I've gone through, whatever, and you get that feeling, there's more to this, and you dig, and like Amanda, she goes down the rabbit holes and she's digging, and so I started digging into myself to see what was different. So the first thing I find out, I don't know everything, but the two M's. Then I asked one day in chat, who all has these? And we're not leaving out people that don't have it. We're trying to figure out, because y'all are obviously drawn too. So once we figure out this, we can figure out you're drawn. Then I did a DNA test. I'm part Neanderthal. I got Neanderthal DNA. Then blood test, I'm O negative. So the together with the two M's, the O negative, and the Neanderthal DNA, the rarity is 0.00047.
Hmm.
And I
So
don't know
what
what it
we
means. I don't
so
know what
what
it
we
means.
have so
Sir.
what we have is we have all these things that they all mean something until we put them together. Well, how about this? Okay. What was asked of me was what was I thinking that day?
Yeah.
So I remember talking to Kerry Arnold, taking his account from Kerry Arnold. I talk to a lot of people that won't speak with any other person. Okay. And this is what they're heavily drawn towards. And this is why they broke their covenant. That's why I don't remember seeing a scar on his hand. If there was a scar, it would have led me to knowing that it was a member of the covenant. Okay. Um, they broke that. The covenant was broken with them. We cannot be trusted. Okay. They are heavily attracted to honesty, loyalty, trustworthy people, spiritual people. You'll find the majority of the people were they were just piecing out in the woods. They were enjoying themselves. They were at one with everything that was going on, whether they're driving down the road in their car and just free spirit or whatever. Something happened. You'll hear things like as in the days of Noah, where the veil was lifted. This is something that Chief Ernest spoke to me about. He wanted to know if I walked through the veil. Okay. Could it have been? But the spiritual aspect of the whole thing. So all these things give you, if you put them all together, they give you the same answer, like that finger pointing thing to my chest and into his chest. All three things meant the same thing, that we were the same, that we were equal, that we were brothers and masters of the woods. Okay. That's what I've come up with, because my first thing was to study me. Why me? Why did this happen to me? And what is it that it is exactly? What does it mean all together? And it hasn't changed. It still means the same thing. As I was shown that these things are extremely smart, and that they are more like us, and they quite possibly have something for us. And I
Well,
believe
Ernie,
that is what it is.
and if you really dig, I do. Amanda does it a different way than I do. I love the way she does it. She's a whole modern I am, so she digs in there. I do a lot of self reflecting and trying to connect things, and um, it's frustrating sometimes because I want to know, and it's I even lost. Right then I lost my train of thought because what was I going to say? Daggum it. Y'all go ahead. I'll think of it in a second. I do that
Can I
one.
ask Ernie what you mean by covenant? Just out of curiosity, what your
Sure.
interpretation of the covenant is that you're referring to.
An agreement. Like we used to have when we were little kids in my generation, is you take out your little jackknife and you make a little cut.
Oh, yeah.
Blood brothers. You make a little cut on
Oh,
your
yeah,
finger
yeah.
and you touch, and that's we are now blood brothers. We are now equal. We are now the same. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I will not break this agreement, and I will forever have your back and you'll have my back. Okay.
Oh, I know what it
It's a
was, Ernie.
sign of being, go ahead.
Being no sign of being uh, uh, togetherness, maybe, or maybe you got my back, I got your back. It's the way I took it when we were little. But so I know what it was. You mentioned the pineal gland earlier,
Mhm.
and I like to do social experiment times. Like I'll say something just out of the blue, or I'll post something in a group out of the blue, and I was
Mhm.
thinking about the pineal gland and the calcification and all that. Just asked
Yeah.
the question. I posted the question on a large group, like, "Hey, who all grew up with well water, and who all grew up with in the city with city water?"
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to kick me out of the group because it didn't have anything to do with strangeness and other things and all that stuff. And I'm like, I was messaging back and forth with some of the moderators, and some of them said, "I know exactly where you're going with this, and I'm fighting for you to stay in the group."
Uh-huh.
And and
Interesting.
and because I had to know some of the people online and whatever, it was very interesting results on the people that balked against that, not knowing why, and some of them were, I don't want to use any bad words, but
Gotcha.
the more normal answers were, you know what they were. I don't want to put somebody in a group or whatever, but I do that sometimes for my
Mhm.
research, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything, but you will be surprised um at the at so right now. I don't know how it was in New Hampshire or whatever because I've never been in that area. If I go, I've been to Delaware. I've been been all up in there. Um, but I know down here, the majority of people where well water, spring water, stuff like that, and the way of life, it was different. People thought different. People
Mhm.
were very country intelligent, problem solvers. You get out in the field. I saw farmers. I've seen some amazing things be solved with the simple. What now it doesn't exist hardly. The common sense that So I don't know. It was just it was successful. I'll just put it that way. That's all I'm going to say. That little
Yeah,
experiment.
it is. I know right where you're going with that too, and that's what I try to tell people is if you're going to be going out bringing somebody out, particularly if you have a little area or they're you're having results in an area, make sure that people spiritually is on the same level as you are on, because if you're going to bring else somebody else out there, I mean, people right now are getting into the forums, and they're being very political and hatred and everything else, and that's just a horrible thing because you're going to be bringing that out into the woods. And you know what, you know something, the forest people backed away from the Native American people, some of them once, because we were too warlike. We fight, we change so much, we can't accept things for the way that they are, or other people, you know. You're going to have to be in full agreement and acceptance to have one of them um, sit sit with you, because let's face it, Mary Green. Okay,
Mhm.
there's a couple of them. People want to ask things like, think about this for a minute. People want to ask things like, well, how come we never found a body? They do bury their dead. They've been seen burying their dead. They've actually paid respect to humans that they knew very well by going to their grave site and leaving something at the grave site. These are facts. These are there. You, you're um, you're missing the point. A lot of people are extremely biased because they're listening to other people that want to signify themselves as experts, and then those people will come out and flash it at you and say there are no experts. There are. Your mother was an expert when she told you how to tie your shoes, until you met a Boy Scout that knew how to tie knots, and so on and so forth. Those are experts. Or if people want to use opinions too much, there's opinions based on knowledge. Your eyewitness. I hate to use eyewitness encounters, where I like eyewitness testimony. I want to hear a testimony. I want to hear every single person because they're reliving that. My
Mhm.
thing was when this first happened to me, I I I just wanted to scream like, "Holy cow, man! Wait till people hear this. This is true. They
Right.
actually are out there." Only to find out that some of the top people in the world
Don't want to hear
were
it.
actually were they actually had some choice names to call me.
Yep.
And I said, "Well,
Mhm.
you know what?" I said, "Someday you're going to meet me."
Well,
38 years later, here I am, and you're hearing it. That These things, and I know that these things are very, very human like. When Darwin made that, I call it the family train. Okay. He was paid to do that, right? Now, let me
Mhm.
ask you something. You know, anything in your house is missing if you don't know what it is it's missing. How did he know that there was a missing link unless he knew that there was a
right.
missing link?
That's I've never thought about that before. How do you
Okay.
know it's
Mhm.
missing if you didn't know it exists?
Yeah, dude.
Yep.
How did they didn't want him to put it in there. So
Wow.
he think
You just
about it.
blew my
You
mind.
know. So everything that you do, if you're going to be a researcher in this field, you have to keep it very simplistic. You have to think outside the box, because that's where they are. The things that they do in the woods, the signs that they leave for you in the woods, the little glyphs and things like that. I won't really discuss this with a lot of people because I don't want the hoaxers in the face. 'Cause I know there's a lot of you out there, and you're gonna taint it for everybody because everybody's gonna start doing it. Okay, but we have found these glyphs in other states, not just in one location. So we know
Right.
that it's not a person making them. And these people that are finding them, I am the only key between those people. They don't even know the other person that has found these things.
Mm.
Okay. And I assure you that they are definitely part of the whole picture on their intelligence.
Ernie, are you opposed to coming back for part 2 sometime?
I'm not opposed to that at all, but you got to
All right.
throw up that picture that Tim asked you to throw
All
up
right.
there
I
and
got a
have me
question.
explain.
No, I'm not ready to go. Y'all tell me when y'all ready to go. I got a couple.
I'm down. This has been
This is
you've been absolutely fascinating to talk
right.
to, Ernie. I haven't been talking that much just because I'm taking it
Yeah.
all in because I'm like, yep, we agree right there.
He's preaching to the choir. So, to both of y'all, because y'all have done different research. At what point in American history did the Bigfoot subject become taboo to talk about? Because if you go back far enough, it's all over not all over the world, but most all over the world, and then somewhere, like he just said, it starts being wiped. So,
Mhm.
do you any of you have any idea what
Yeah.
time period that was,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
okay,
When the Patty Grimman film came out, because it was true. And nobody wanted you to know that, or the people in the powers to be. A lot of things they
Yep.
don't want you to know. And they definitely didn't want you to know this. This would have disrupted an awful lot of the logging, an awful lot of the fracking, you name it, mining, everything else. Because then people would have had to go in there and prove that there was more, and prove the intelligence value of them, which I'm doing, which I've been adamant about doing for 7 years now. This is our next move. Okay, that they don't want to see. That's when it changed. Because up until then, it was nothing but a myth. Even though Teddy Roosevelt had wrote about it in his diary,
Mhm.
Teddy Roosevelt had seen it. Daniel Boone, there's
Mhm.
people that are investigating that whole Daniel Boone scenario. There
yep,
wasn't just Daniel Boone and his son there. It was Daniel Boone, his son, and then his son's friend that was Indian. And
Mhm.
both Daniel Boone and his son's friend put a shot on it. Because no matter how fast Daniel Boone was, he was not going to reload that quick.
right.
Okay, according to what happened in the area and where they were standing, because we got people that know exactly the distance, and pretty much they've got it down. It's all this information is out there. You're looking at things like you're in the Ohio Valley. This is just give you a piece of information on how much information we don't have that you're going to go, wow, but it is there. Um, we can go back in and talk about the woo, and we can say, well, does anybody know who Noah's son was? Ham. Who were the three sons of Ham? Where did they go? Ham
Mhm.
told them to go to the Great Inland Sea. Where was the Great Inland Sea? You're going to find, you're going to find that when the two brothers from New Hampshire started searching the world for these skeletons at the Smithsonian, admitted to destroying a lot of them. They only had like one left. You're going to find that these mounds here in Ohio going up to the Great Lakes all have one thing in common with them. They're not what we think that they are. They're actually
Mhm.
trading ports. They were actually done by not the Hopewell Indians, because Ham told them to take one of certain kinds of animals with them. Well, those mounds, one of them was right near me here. What did they find in the mound? Surprise, they found elephant bones. Now, what they also found, what they finally found, because I used to talk to the archaeologist there, was a woman's grave in there. Now, in Native American traditions, it was a woman who declared war. Okay.
Mm.
So here she is. I told them they were going to find this. They find her. What do they find? What is she wearing? She's got a great white shark's tooth. And what else does she have? She has a bronze chest plate. Now, if we go up to the Great Lakes where the mountains start, they go down to the Gulf of Mexico, we find that they're mining the bronze. Did anybody do a metallurgy report on that bronze? Yes, they did. It happens to be the same bronze that she was wearing on her chest plate. And guess what? It happens to be the same exact metallurgic report as the Greeks.
Mm.
And those forts go all the way down And those people who were in those forts were known as men of great stature, all
Hmm.
over recorded, all over 8 feet tall. There's missing.
Men of renown.
There is missing information, history there. So how much more is there that's missing? We found ancient Egyptian artifacts here. Whoa, wait a minute. That
Yep.
certainly does tell me, people will say, well, tracks are not evidence of existence. Baloney, because if we had two fields and you
Something's
wanted,
making them.
if we needed food and you want to sit in a field where there's no tracks, well, guess what? I'm sitting in the field where there are tracks. Okay, you can sit over there until you finally get one, but you're going to get a lot more hungry than me. It's
It's
absolutely is.
mind-boggling, Ernie. Well, since it's my show, so we can talk. I told you before, you talk about what you want to. You've opened up a can of worms. I could sit and listen to you and talk to you and learn from you for days. And I know I saw your comment today. I just heard of this. I haven't dug into it, but what they found under the pyramids.
Yeah,
which a lot of us that think the same way. Amanda, I know, probably would. We were suspicious anyway.
Yeah,
because
makes you suspicious.
Yeah,
and then you start digging a little bit deeper.
Yeah, yeah. So, so let's get. So can you tell me about this picture? We'll get that done.
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't know why he laughed, but Tim Vogel, y'all 15 minutes before the show, sent me this picture. He said, "Hey, you need to show this. You need to show this to Ernie." And I'm like, "Okay." So I showed it to him, and he laughed. So he's going to tell a story here, and I'm going to pop this up. And I haven't heard it yet. Amanda hadn't heard it yet. So
nope.
Okay.
Right. So what are we looking at?
The way that it went is where Tim Vogel and his brother Eric and what Tim does for a living.
Right.
And this is called the Little Red Schoolhouse. It's in Montgomery, Massachusetts. It sits on the corner of Pitcher Street and the Main Drag. If you went down behind that school, that road there goes all the way to Westfield. They wanted to know where I grew up and everything, and that's the point that I used for reference for Tim. And then I finished it by saying, and it's true, that was my school. That was in, that one. If you read the plaque on there, I think it's like 16 something. Okay.
So y'all had combined grades. Combined grades were 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd like to think it was combined people. You only had a couple people.
Well, I love history like that. My uncle bought a big plot of land, and there was an old schoolhouse. I mean, it was small.
Yeah, small.
They were going to tear it down, and they did. And I took a picture of it. I'm glad I did. It's one of the most awesome photos I've ever taken. But some of those in the 70s, some of that those type of buildings were still around. And I hate to see them. I'm glad they've
the Historical Society. There's a lot of history in around there, and there's a lot of things that supernatural that happened in that town.
So I can look up that school, and I know about where you're at.
Yeah, but Tim at first he didn't believe me, and I said, "I'm going to tell you right now." I used to have to walk there. I said the Indians used to chase me, and there's still arrowheads in the door. But I did have to walk there.
Both ways.
It was about a mile to walk there, and it was a dirt road at one time. So it was,
It sounds like you grew up like a lot of us. I'm 54. I was born in 71, but I remember, at 8 years going to the woods. I got my first rifle when I was in single shot shotgun when I was about 7. Started hunting on my own and maybe 11 or so, and people nowadays would hear that and think, "Oh my God!" But I was taught right, and
Right.
we were careful. So, I say, Ernie, run this by you. Everybody's heard this. They'll ask, about the Bigfoot encounter and stuff like that. And this is it popped in my head one day. I don't know whether open-minded because I saw Bigfoot because I'm open-minded. That's the question. That did it kick this off, and for the other things, for me maybe open to it and allow it to be shown to me,
Yes,
or
you are now.
yeah,
You are
or
now.
yes, and it's my first oh crap moment,
But
but
before this happened, you had to get to that first stage, and that was a simple thing about awareness and spirituality,
right,
and you being the person that you are. Then after that happened to you, is yes, it's like going hunting for your first time. Until you see your first deer, you're not going to see any deer. Once you see that first deer, now you know what you're really looking for, and you
what
see
you
more deer.
well, Larry Port, one of the first shows I went on, he said, "Yep, I love him and his wife Debbie." He said, "Yep, you had the Roger 5 minutes before you saw the Bigfoot, and then you had Roger 5 minutes after you saw the Bigfoot." And I said, "That's the best way to put
Yeah,
it." It was,
yeah.
it changed everything. So,
What I'm trying to do here also is, and I hate to kind of seem like I'm pushing it, and in a way I am, but I'm pushing it in a different way. Is you can see where underneath my name is New England Encounters
yeah,
.itsy.com there.
yeah,
Those drawings that were done by Sibylla Irving, I
are
have
there,
them on T-shirts, and I am pushing the sign language because I want people, never mind the AI and stuff like that.
right,
I want people to be able to approach you and you to be able to tell people that the intelligence factor that's figuring in here, that they do use sign language, and that happens to be some of the sign language, that they use. And we need to get that message out there to people is to protect our woods. This is what the Vogel brothers are all doing. At their at the festival this coming June, that will be within about 2 miles of where I had my encounter. I was just totally excited to have them contact me and ask me to be there, because that's what the whole festival is about the legends that happened in that area, and it's about the kids, and they're trying to raise the money to teach the kids first aid, search and rescue, kayaking, mountaineering, all kinds of things. And it's not just one group of kids;
right,
it's many kids in many schools, from uh, the parochial schools right to the public schools. They're teaching them something valuable. It comes from the hill towns. It comes from people like us. Okay, and it makes them more aware of everything that's out there. Maybe gives them that spiritual factors where they have a place to go. We used to call it, when I was a kid growing up, hunting. It was necessary for us to go to church on Sundays, but if we were going to go hunt, like in the state of Vermont, you could hunt on a Sunday or camp out and hunt the next day. But my mom used to ask my dad, what about them going to church? And my father used to say, they are going to go to church. It's the cathedral. We're going to go to the cathedral in the woods. So that's where
Ernie,
you are. When
it's
you enter
I
the
love
woods,
that.
yeah,
yeah,
when you enter the woods, you offer a blessing. When you leave the woods, you offer a blessing. If you get something, you share part of that harvest with the rest of the
yep,
animals that are in the woods.
good way
That
to look
is
at it. And
that is the right thing to do.
somebody, we had a discussion about hunters and whatever, and I'm like, I've done some of my best soul searching and thinking in the woods. I don't know whether
Yeah,
and I would crave that. I'm like, I gotta go. I'm gonna stay out half a day tomorrow. I'm gonna stay out all day. Go, relax, think about things you have, your problems or whatever. Maybe figure out something. It to me, you're right. I never thought about it like that, but that used to be, and now I do it some. I can't do it as much because it was right there at my house. So that I love that. I like people who make me think, and
yeah,
me and Amanda will probably be thinking about this conversation for a while. I
Oh
imagine.
yeah, definitely.
yeah. Is people rob you of that? Or, I've had some people ask me, my wife and I talked about it, is you have if you listen to like what Einstein was talking about on the levels of thinking, you have mainstream thinking, then there's a level above that. Deepak Chopra talks about it. Shakti Gawain talks about it. You are gaining knowledge. It's just floating around up there. mainstream doesn't like that. It's like good and evil. It's always trying to pull you back down. It's always trying to
Yep.
pull you back in there. So watch out who you let into your cathedral. If they come over to visit with you, they have to be basically the same wavelength. A gentleman I was in service with, when we came back home, we never spoke. I would go over his house and we would just sit there. We would turn the TV on with the volume on, turn the music on, and have our knickerbockers, okay? Our little big mouth knickerbockers there or whatever, and we'd never have to say a single word to each other, And that's what it is when you're out there, when you have people come over, it's a very spiritual moment. When you're camped out, it's a very spiritual moment. Let everything go, and you'll feel changed when you come back. I'm sure you will.
You think it's something like putting yourself out there and being vulnerable in the woods like that? You're not inside the walls, so to speak, and literally
you're putting your complete trust and your complete faith. You're putting it in front of you. You're no longer talking about it. You're walking the talk.
Mhm.
You're actually doing it. You're releasing it out there. You're accepting. You have to be able to accept the truth before you can actually see that. You have to be willing to accept it. If you're not willing to accept the truth, and here we are, okay? If you're not willing to accept this, then I don't know what to tell anybody, because these are the facts. You have a bias that stands in front of you. You block your own pineal gland, you know?
Mhm.
It's remain open, remain free. When you feel that you're being drawn back into that turmoil, that everything is going on, step back away from it, let it go, get rid of it, and take your little walk, get out there. Trust me, is they know when you enter the woods. Okay, like you would know someone enters your house.
You know the most free I've ever felt. My wife back-to-back years, a couple years ago, went to Wyoming, and there were no negative people because there were no people around.
Wyoming is desolate
We didn't
in
have
parts.
no phone signal to mess with me.
Mhm.
We could go back and we went back roads that we had no idea where we were at. I breathe better. My blood pressure, my thoughts, when I got back here, I'm not in a huge town. When I got back here, I felt claustrophobic.
Mhm.
You feel fenced in and everything. Yeah. Watch out. Don't let that darkness into your destroy your feng shui in your house. Don't let that darkness ever come in. People must leave it at their own places. If they come to visit you, they come to visit you for the freedom. No need to talk. No need to be waited on or anything. Back to those pictures, those T-shirts. That is the original artwork from Sibylla Irwin.
Okay.
We added more pixels to it so that they won't wash out. So you have high definition on them.
Mhm.
Okay. We don't sell everything that you're going to see on there. That's Itsy likes to do those things because everything costs money to put all those things on there.
Oh, things
So
are expensive.
if you have questions, you just ask those questions, and I guarantee you, within 10 minutes or so, is we're going to, my wife is going to contact you and answer your questions. You can have any of those drawings put on anything that you want to have them put on. Okay. The only one that we don't offer on there is the original drawing, and that was never finished, and that was by Larry Batts. It disturbed poor Larry. He's passed away. Great guy. He's the guy that actually got me. I used to watch all these different podcasts, just watch them, never say anything. The same thing as the forums. I guess you call it ghosting or whatever. And I was
Mhm.
looking for somebody I could confide in, and Larry was known as the guy. So I watched his show, and then I messaged him, and he understood because he understands animals. So that's what got me going.
Is
Yeah,
that
that's
close?
it.
Is that close?
Yes,
Okay.
that is it. Yep, yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hey, I
You'll
did
see
something
it all
cool
on there.
for once. What? All right. Let me ask you this: when you finally got to talk about this amongst or with the guy you were talking about, finally got to talk to people and get it off your chest, and there was no ridicule, there was just listening. Um, how did that make you how did that make you feel? Was it? I'm sure it was a big relief, but could you? I remember mine, and it's interesting to hear other people's experience. So, like, were you gushing it all out, or were you? I'm sure it was emotional too.
Yeah, it was fantastically emotional. I was doing a lot of hyperventilating. As you can probably imagine, I've never really uh, had that I call it that runner breath. It's where you run the 10 miles as fast as you can run. You get to the end and you go that relaxed breath that you have. I've never had that because I've always known that I have a message here,
Yeah,
and I'm still fixed on that message. There's not hardly a day there. And I don't think about that and why people don't hear that and they don't want to, if they're that serious, why they don't take that up. I see some forums out there, they keep asking the same questions that you asked me when I was on your show. And what part of it don't you understand?
yeah,
Or you're just doing it just for the money, which they are,
yeah.
and a lot of other people do. If you have one podcaster that's seen one Bigfoot or forest person, then the next show is the guy heard about this guy, so he has two or
Yeah.
four, excuse me. And I've witnessed that. I've known a lot of these people. As
And
we're right at the same campground. Everybody was in the same campground, the same camp spot. All with tents are in the same exact area, and they all got to come running into breakfast in the morning, one by one. And each person had uh, a bigger encounter than the other person did in the same campsite. One guy seen one in that campsite, and then he said nobody else was around. And then the next person come running in and they said, I just seen two of them. And it got all the way up to like 4 or 5 of them. And I'm like, for God's sake, you need, y'all need to go to a different breakfast place, or, another one is two groups basically camped out in the same area, but separated like maybe by 100 yards, two separate groups from two different areas. Okay. One of the groups wasn't as spiritually as inclined as the other one was. The one that wasn't as spiritually inclined had a little bickering going on about, we want to go over there, and no, let's go over there. So they split off. Well, here's the ironic thing. Some of them, half the group went over to one side, the other half went over to the other side. The other group from a different location, altogether from out of state, was sat right where they sat, right around the campfire. And I love these guys, okay? And they witnessed the whole thing. What do you think happened? You got one group way on the other side, all from the same, what I'm saying? And they start banging on trees. The other group started banging on trees. And they're banging back and forth. This sounds like Morse code going on, okay? So they don't know. I'm not mentioning names or anything, but they don't
yeah,
know that we know, okay?
yeah.
Well, guess what? They got to post it and everything. Yeah, last night we went out and we started knocking and we started getting knocking back. And if you're listening, you probably still don't know that it's you, but you guys
Well,
were banging back and forth
Ernie,
on the trees. Well, it wasn't
I
you, was it?
no, 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 no. I don't. When I figure out stuff like that, or our group, we figure out stuff like that, we do just like you are. We're like, oh my god, didn't even realize this is going on or whatever. And I won't call anybody out either.
Yeah.
It's but there's so many, like you said. So some want to make money. And everything is not a daggum Bigfoot. It's just, I mean, if me and my son go hunting 20 times at this one place, the time that we go in and I don't hear birds running around and there's no deer and then I'm like, what, we need to be eye out. But other times, it's normal. It doesn't have. Well, but here's another thing too. Depends on where you live. If you like,
Yeah.
some of our friends live in areas where they live too. I've seen a few in chat right now. I've been to some of the places. I
Yes.
know,
So yeah, so there's a prime example of what we're pushing here, because 7 short years ago, they didn't get in trees. And I pushed that and I pushed it and I pushed it. 7 years ago, they didn't eat meat, and I pushed it and pushed it. Nobody even realizes where this came from. You all been listening for a long time, and now you all are trying to. You're all in agreement that that is what they do. Also, well, you know what? The next part of it is communication, because you weren't ready 38 years ago. That's where I stand. You weren't ready 38 years ago, and a lot of you aren't even ready today. And it's those of us that are spiritually inclined. It's those of us who really understand and are ready for acceptance. We're going to understand this. What are you going to do if one walks out on the trail in front of you and recognizes you? Are you going to turn and run? Or are you going to take some of that sign language? Are you going to try to communicate with it? Because just maybe may be looking at something that has a gift for you. Just maybe. Maybe you're not hearing all of the story just yet. It used to be where people would just hear their little bedtime story when I spoke, and that's all that they would hear. And until they heard me more and more and more, and I would push it, they do get in trees. Don't tell me they don't. You're making a fool out of yourself.
Well,
Don't tell me they can't run this fast, and don't tell me they don't eat meat.
Well, and we know, I know, he's dealt with these things for 25 years. And long story short, everybody knows who I'm talking about. He finally made peace accidentally because they got in a bad spot, and he whooped 3 times, and he said the thing sounded like it was disappointing, like, the gig's up, and walked. And so I've been down there. I've been all over the place. He said he lose deer, and he backs up to Bankhead National Forest, massive forest, and shoot a deer and go to get it, and it's gone. And then later find it torn in half or a quarter torn off and talk out into the thing, like, here you go, So
I've heard a very similar story to that David, the museum owner, took of a gentleman. He shot a deer and he went over the ridge to go get it, and he walked up on it thinking he'd walked up on some bear or some people or something. Anyway, he came up to him, he's like, "Hey, get away!" And it was a couple of Sasquatch, and he got scared, of course, jumped down like, "Oh God, I'm fixing to die." And they start jibber jabbering back and forth, talking, looking, pointing at him. But the big male picks up the deer, throws it up on his shoulders, jibber jabbers again, rips off the hind quarter and throws it at him like a, "Hey, thanks, here's your part," as they leave. So it's just amazing how
A lot of stories like that, and that's just proof that they actually kind of know that guy, even though he might not. They've seen him many times. They know what's going on, So those things are there, but it's changed. It's changed, and hopefully it's going to change some more, so that these real people who want to research, or even just learning how to research, the newbies in research, and you're going to be out there someday, and one of them may step up on the trail in front of you, and it'll be your chance to maybe use a bit of the sign language to befriend them, and you can go from there.
And the only reason I waved is because of the people that have taught me the stories. And I hadn't heard your story yet, but it seemed like it felt like the right thing to do. And now, Ernie, you may like this. We know a guy. He's up in Ohio, I think, Kane Michael. And,
yes.
He told, he's a friend of the show. He's been on a few times. He was telling us a story. I don't know if Amanda's heard this.
I mean, not have.
We're like you. He was, and I started thinking different because of things he told me. But he was talking about the wood structures and all that. So he's wondering if it's a form of communication. So he didn't tell anybody what he was doing. He made up his own sign to make out of wood. Every time he would go to an area, he would leave that. He'd make it. And I don't know how long it was into it. He woke up one morning, went out on his front porch, and there it is. Something had made that same stick structure and left it in his front yard. When he said that, I just got cold. I mean, that's another level. I never had heard you, but when he said that's way up here. That changes things. So as I talk to him, I have to
Well,
start looking
the
at what
things are
I find in the woods different. I have to look at these extras and that shouldn't be there, and these tree breaks and these. I have to look at them different, and I
look,
appreciate you coming, and
it's
exposing
very
that.
subtle. It's very subtle. It's like your first day at school. You're in kindergarten and they got the alphabet along the top of the chalkboard there. You're not going to go A through Z. You're going to start off with A, and until you have A mastered, you're not going to learn B.
Right.
You're not going to learn lowercase until your teacher does that. And that is exactly what the forest people did. It looked at me like, do I understand? That is exactly what they're doing. They're going to teach you one thing at a time. I have a friend of mine, and I can kind of mention his name, and because it's going to come out in anyways. One of the things that he found, okay, this is after years, okay, is he found his name in sticks. His name is Lynn, okay, Lynn. He got the Ly in the end. Okay, and I'm sure that Kane would probably tell you that they do things very, very similar to this. So in essence, what we have is I'm trying to push it down further. Other people might want to talk about the woo, and I'll just make one statement on the woo. For everybody's out there on the woo, okay? An elephant couldn't grab a tree and pull a tree out of the ground and turn it upside down and jam it back into the ground. An elephant can't do that. So therefore, even though these things are super looking, super strong and everything, we have something that's going on. The baby is a little supernatural. Okay. Has anybody seen them do that yet? No, because if you remember in the beginning when we started this, I go back and I say, unless I've seen them do something like this, but there's only one thing out there that this possibly can. So is it perhaps, what if they had something really to teach us, to show us, to wake us up, totally wake us up? Could it be? Let's face it, Ron Moorhead. What did he pursue? What is he pursuing?
Quantum
physics.
Yeah.
How many people can actually understand quantum physics?
Right. So you're saying it was shown to him so he could go down the right path to educate us.
Yet it was shown to like the forest people.
Yeah, and got the some of them. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's number 2 behind Patty. His recordings. I mean, that's just me.
What about it? What did you say about his recordings?
I feel like it's number 2 piece of evidence behind Patty.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And I hear a lot of people putting him down. The groups, and it's really unfortunate that they're going to do something like that, because I assure you, the logic that some of these people are using is just to protect their own egos and everything. He's people will say, well, it doesn't sound like these over here. It sounds too like much like this or that. If you listen to the whole entire tape, you're going to hear. I'm going to try to mimic what it was, but as you hear them talking, you'll hear one of them say a word that sounds like bonjour. It sounds like a real Frenchman, or like a real medicine man, or a real voyeur that's out there in the woods, and he's going bonjour like that. Our language is based on emotion also. So no, you're not going to have this one over here unless they're having the same exact conversation with the same emotion going on. You're not going to hear exactly the same thing. And they try to defunk Ron Moorhead by saying, well, Scott Nelson, who the heck is he? Well, look it up. A lot of these people want to say these things, but they don't want to look these things up.
They don't.
Scott
Nelson Agreed.
And in the field, they don't understand about the DNA, or they'll say, well, it's a primate. It's, well, guess what? I hate to break the news to you, but you're a primate too.
That's
okay. What a coincidence! But you happen to be the monkey in the tree that thinks it's the smartest because it managed to make it all the way up to the tree that's actually dried out and ready to break.
The one thing that shocked me into questioning like our intelligence, I'm just saying all of us, of like, how many times has technology been lost and we have to relearn, and why was it lost? Did we misuse it or whatever? But I remember watching something years ago. I've always been interested in the weird stuff because of the weird stuff that's happened. And
Mhm.
they talk about the Egyptians and the orange juice, and they made a battery. I'm like, wait, what?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And people don't find that as amazing as I do. I mean, I don't understand it. When you tell me that the Egyptians had made a battery, well, what did they make it for? Why did they need a battery? I started asking to myself, So
Mhm.
that it blows my mind. But
Yeah.
I got another thing down in Huntsville down here, about an hour away. They have Space and Rocket Center. I'd seen a UFO when I was 17, and the way it moved was crazy. But anyway, there's a blackbird there. They had retired. We didn't know it existed. It traveled from like Los Angeles to New York in 2 hours or something.
Mhm.
And they had here it sits. There's a plaque here. There's a plaque, and at the end, there's a rod off the end of it. In my mind, I'm like, what is that? How does that help it fly? So I go look at the plaque, and what it was doing, it was sending an electrical charge to split the atmosphere so the drag wouldn't be so much on the plane, so it could achieve the speed it was. And I'm like, holy what? And then I'm like, hey, come here and look at this. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. I'm like, they're splitting the atmosphere. What? How do they know how to do that? Nobody
Yeah.
cares.
Well,
Nobody cares. I'm like,
wait till you start hearing about ZPEs.
uh,
People are going to say, "What? I never heard of that before." Try zero point energy, and
Mhm.
who's working on it, and what it really is, and things like that. Or here's a good one for people that like to research and look up weird facts. The legend was that the Vikings could tell what direction to go in when they couldn't see the moon or the stars in total darkness by using this crystal.
yeah,
It's
moon.
it's
Mhm.
ab it's
Yeah,
absolutely true.
I've
It's
seen
been
that.
proven. They have it. They know what crystal it is, and it's the weirdest thing. But it actually, where did they learn things like that?
Exactly. How do you?
You
Mhm.
know,
Where did that
where,
original knowledge come
yeah,
from?
or the Native Americans, where did they learn about the medicinal plants? Could it be from the forest people? Okay,
Yeah,
because
I
let's
mean,
face it, they depend a lot on the different plants and everything. And there are many things that they can eat that people don't even understand. They have been seen eating these things, and we know the reasons why. One of the reasons why um, that they can speak, that a lot of people don't talk about, is the fact is the shape. The lead singer for Queen. Do you remember his name?
yep.
It was
Freddie.
in you, Freddie
Yeah,
Mercury.
Freddie
So
Mercury, yeah.
you also know because of the shape of his teeth, he was able to hit different octaves, correct?
Right. Yep.
Well, there's only two animals on the face of the earth they can speak. It has language, and it's because we are both upright, and it's because we both have the I think it's called the 12th nerve. Okay. And we develop that 12th nerve because of the way that we eat and we move it around a lot. So it's a muscle, it's your tongue. And because of the shape of your jaw and your teeth in your mouth, you're able to make many more sounds than anything else. And then from there, we have vocabulary. So that is one of the reasons why that the fourth people can speak. It's because of the 12th nerve. I think I got that right. I'm not sure,
So,
but
who do you think? Do you think there's a movement? And this is just right off the top of my head, but I've noticed like the trolls, like you said, you'd go on these boards and you would ask the legit question or whatever, and they would just attack you. It still happens. It's not as bad because we have the technology to get rid of them right here live or whatever. But who do you think? This is hard. Who do you think's in charge of that operation to put out make I know the first thing is do that they make you sound crazy, you know hey, oh, they're nuts, and then people nowadays, they're so easy to manipulate because we've turned into a headline reading society. um and if it pops up on the Facebook news feed, it's true, right? It's a constant battle. It's still going on, but we're I think we're winning a little bit, Ernie. I think we are. I don't know.
In a way, we are, because I've gotten that message. That was one of my other messages, is the brutality of the eyewitness testimonies on what it happens to do to somebody. The best analogy that I can give other people that are out there is, you got any friends who are combat vets? Why don't you go up to them and start making fun of them? Make fun of them about something that tragically happened to them.
Hmm.
PTSD is more horrifying than you can actually realize. You're actually reliving it, and you have to have, I believe it's three things to happen to you during that moment in your life in order to sustain PTSD. And it isn't anything that you're just going to walk away from.
Right.
Okay, so that has changed a little bit. Some of the group, I'm a moderator of several groups, but some of the group admins, they're pretty much into stopping these people from bullying. But then you get the other people, we're just going to throw it out there, we're going to call them Karens or whatever. Or what do you call a man? I don't know. Kevin. Okay, you
Yeah,
get those
Kyle or
people out
Kevin,
there.
I think is the
Yeah,
term.
Tyler. Yeah. So now what you have is Kyle goes, well, he told me that I wasn't very smart. Well, you're not very smart. Hate to break the news to you, but you're not very smart. But he didn't swear at you or anything else, and he, whatever. So I ignore those things. But people are misusing that. Okay, you're not being bullied. You came up with a story like I just heard 2 days ago, that the gentleman said that through his studies of 28 years tracking Sasquatch and studying Sasquatch, that he has come to the realization that the reason why they hide so well is because they carry a tree with them. So when they need to hide, they just put the tree in front of them. And the bigger Sasquatches use two trees. And he's going on and on. I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, well, yeah, okay, well, we can't emoji, we can't do anything. That's fine and dandy. You're going to get all these people. You're going to get the people who are going to, some of will say, the women, for instance, and they all know now. Okay, I told them, I said, don't be telling people that you're going camping and where you're camping by yourself. Don't do that. There's a lot of bad people
Yeah.
out there. David Paulides. You want to wind up on the show someday? I mean, and then we also have the women that will do the same thing. So it's like a breeding ground for trouble. So if you're going to be a researcher in this, you have to find out who the real researchers are. Where did you get your information from? How did you glean this information? And what are you doing on it? And where are you going with it? There is only one place to go on this. And if the people are not doing it, then they're not serious. Our next step is communication. That is our next logical step. To
Mhm.
Jane Goodall it and hike our butts up the mountain and sit down with them and learn something. There is no two ifs, ands, and buts about it. I don't need to go to eat a piece of swamp grass or bite the head off a fish with one. It has
And
something more than that to teach me.
I think it's a process too, because
Yeah.
once I don't care if it's a mountain lion that's not supposed to be in your region and you see it, uh, uh, once you accept it and then and start dealing with the situation, the first encounter, oh man, you handled yours well, but I think you have to keep putting yourself in the fire and hardening yourself in a way to be able to take that next step. And I've noticed it with us when things first started happening. Man, I would it. But now, if you're right. They're so big and strong and they're so fast. If they wanted you, they would get you at any point.
That's right.
You
Look at
know,
Osman, the Osman case. The man that linked the Osman case to a reality is by the name of Russell Easterbrooks. He put it in his book, and the reason why he linked it as being a true case is because of two things that the Sasquatch did. It gave hand gestures, and it also spoke. It said "skokum," or it said "soka." It says "soka" to him. Put his hand up. It said "soka." Okay, so he linked that directly to other accounts that are in that book, that sign language was recognized. Okay, the it is only one place for us to go, and that is straightforward in this, and to be serious about it. Because when one does come out in front of you, let's hope that you do know the sign, but we're equal and we're cool, and you don't start throwing crypt sign language at them like you were from the Harlem or something.
Well, that's, well,
You and
that's,
me, we're gonna get into it.
well, I think that's where I joke a lot. Like, look, screaming and whooping and beating trees, and you don't know what you're saying. You don't,
Mm-hmm.
You're just fine. But I give them their credit, because if it hadn't been for shows like this, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. It
Mm-hmm.
made us more comfortable.
That's
The
right.
subject's more comfortable.
Yeah, if there wasn't other people already talking about it or being brave enough to talk about it,
Yeah.
we, like you said, we wouldn't be here now.
So
That's
it's
so
kind
true.
of normalized it a little bit for some of them. So.
A little bit, yeah. If you think that how can I say this? Trying to be diplomatic about it. Yeah, I have my enemies out there, but I don't recognize them.
Yeah.
Because in all truthfulness, is I'm not going to let you rent space in my head or give you my power. Okay,
Well,
you can say, you can do what you want to do,
yeah.
Whatever the case may be. But I've had people say to me, "Well, why don't you tell us about some?" I'm not telling you anything, because I can see in your nature, I can
Right.
see in your spiritualism that I don't want to just hand it to you.
Right.
I'll tell you where it is. I'll tell you how to find it. We have a lot of evidence on the intelligence of these things. Like, you'll hear people say, "Well, they don't hit the trees." Yeah, well, guess what? Those ain't just mouth pops. They use mouth pops too, but you ain't. I don't care what you think. You're hallucinating. If sorry to say that, but if you think you can hear a mouth pop from 3 miles away, because we have evidence on actually them using clubs. When I tell you in my encounter that what I heard was limbs breaking, I also heard one other thing too. And what it was that I heard is, like, if you took a 250-pound bag and hung a 250-pound bag, and you took a baseball bat, it's called the ugly thud, and you hit that bag as hard as you can with a baseball bat. That's what I heard. So if somebody wants to tell me that no, they weren't using the club or anything like that, they're using a club, and we know that some of these clubs have actually been found. And I'm not going to tell you where. They do leave them in certain spots. Okay, they don't carry trees around with them. They don't carry clubs and boulders like a caveman. Okay,
Well,
they don't need to do that, but they do have them in strategic places.
so I've even, because you're throwing spitballing sometimes, like, well, what could this be? Well, somebody said something about them slapping trees or whatever. I'm like, what if you're just there, and just saying, what if you're just there and they're walking through, they travel through every now and then, and they go up and they slap a tree just to see if it's hollow, and think, oh, I'm gonna come back. This is a food source, and maybe be some bugs in there, and might be some raccoons living in there.
That's very good, because I'm going to give you an account right now, and everybody kind of knows this gentleman's name, but they don't. Ironically, they don't know about his encounter. And I won't get totally into the encounter. I'll give you his name. His name is Randy Harrington, and he witnessed.
I
He
know, right?
witnessed. Yeah. He witnessed them. One of them coming through the camp area that he was in, and nobody was in the camp area, but they had the garbage cans, the aluminum garbage cans with the covers on them. Well, you never guess what this one was doing. The juvenile had himself a little branch, and he was walking along. When Randy first heard it, he didn't know what the heck the noise was until he looked in his rear view mirror. If you're familiar with Randy on some of his experiments that
Well,
he's
let
done.
me back up. It's not Harrington that I know. It's another guy. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. And it was walking through the campsite that night, and it was tapping the cans with a stick to see which ones had anything in it. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, he witnessed it doing that until it got over near the truck, and then somehow it figured out something was a little bit asunder, because Randy had it blacked out and everything. Was just using his outside rear view mirror there, and that's when I'm trying to remember. It picked its hands up, and it did a whoop. And he said it was at that moment, he said, that another one came running across the brook right at the truck, and And they went right around the back of the truck, and they started rummaging. The big one got up on the back of the truck, and you could feel the truck. He uses it for his business. The back end of it go down, and they started rummaging through the stuff in the back of his truck, and I think it hit one of the little gas cans. They took it. They hit one of the little gas cans. Now, Randy has had things. Randy, please forgive me if I tell him, but I think they should know this. Is the intelligence factor of blazing the trail. Him and his partner blazing a trail on the I think of the Okeechee Mountains in Oklahoma, and just a couple miles in, they had to blaze the trail, and his buddy lost the radio, and he also lost one of the pictures out of his pocket, and he didn't realize he had pictures of his family in there. Well, 2 days or whatever it was later, they were leaving, and they were coming on the way back, and on the way back, they found 2 rock turns in the middle of the trail they had just blazed. What do you think was in those 2 rock turns? One of the family pictures and the radio.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so tell me about the intelligence factor. Then tell me which way you think we should be going. Should we be BSing and making believe to tell everybody, hey, guess what? I know this and I know that. No, you don't. No, you don't. Not unless you're like one of these people, not unless you really had close contact with them, then you know their intelligence, and that's the road we should be on.
And here's another thing. So you've been a hunter, or being a human even. You can read a book about deer hunting or turkey hunting or whatever, and you know what they're supposed to do.
Mhm.
But pressure makes us do different things at different times. So Amanda could see one doing something that nobody's ever seen before, but what caused it, what pressure was put on that animal or person or forest person
Mhm.
to do that. I've seen deer absolutely run through the thickest, gnarliest stuff because they got spooked. I saw where a deer ran off like a 150-foot bluff because something was chasing it and landed over next to the interstate. That deer normally wouldn't have done that, but some type of pressure caused the reaction. So we
Mhm.
we probably have the norms, and then you have that could happen. Now, the way I deal with Ernie, what you're talking about, that the trolls or the people, like you said, you can tell by their demeanor.
Mhm.
They're baiting you to start talking so they can be their whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that in person all the time at the museum too.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
just like I said, they're watching their body language and stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know what's coming. So
Mhm.
the way I deal with it, Amanda, this might be some advice to you.
All right.
The way I deal with it is I look at them and I feel sorry for them because they're the uneducated one.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when all of this comes out, their mind is going to be fried. When it finally does, we're being prepared maybe to help those people. Does that make sense?
How about this? The day will come that you will meet one again, and you're probably going to have to use sign language, and you're probably going to wind up sitting with them. You're probably going to learn something, and then who you're going to tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
It will be your lesson, but you're supposed to learn, and when you learn it, you're supposed to try to teach the other people about it.
Yeah.
It's been 7 years. 7 years for me steady. Okay. And slowly it's getting through to some people, and some people, more people are coming out that have known these beings and have witnessed things, and they're more inclined to come out and speak to other people like us now. Okay. Every single person, like you were saying, does have something that we need to hear. Everybody does, and and these beings have something to show us. I for one, want to learn a lot more about it. Okay, it's just
And
me.
well, Ernie and Amanda and me with the little show, we're in position to educate. So I feel like I need to get more educated.
Same. That's why I'm always digging. And something really neat you brought up, Ernie, to go back to the whole stick thing. And some of the stuff I've been digging is a lot of some of the historical stuff on this. And I actually have. I try to show it to the people in the comments. 99% of all historical accounts of Sasquatch or wild man or whatever shows them carrying a club. And so when you said that, that's immediately where my brain went, was all these images that I've been seeing in this. I'm like, oh my goodness, there it is. And they don't show that in a lot of modern not retellings, what's the word I'm looking for? Modern
Right.
artwork, I guess.
You're
But
right.
seeing it in some of the older stuff, it's like, is that a piece of knowledge that we've lost or have lost of them, of the forest people? So it's I don't know,
I
just
think
that's where my brain is going right now.
that the reason why you don't see it anymore is because when they put that in there, if we look back on the Winstead Wild Man in the state of Connecticut, for instance, um,
Mhm.
they had to draw. It was one of the most recognized encounters historically in that area. Um, it was in the New York Times. But if we take a club and we put a club with an animal, they're no longer an animal.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the reason why you don't see it anymore. You would have to dig for it. If you ever notice it when you go to a library, there's a certain section that you have to request to go into. Okay. They're books that are really old and um, they don't want to have them destroyed or anything, but they can't, they have a lot of knowledge like medicinal herbs and things like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's what's going on right there is there is evidence right there, that they do that. And it does substantiate what I'm saying is we do know if I mention these people's names that you would know them, you say, really? Wow. Yeah, we talk and they have found these, what's so subtly placed there is you would pass by it, you would walk by it, you'd walk by that Easter egg is it's a club. It can be used as a club, particularly when you see there's telltale signs. I won't give it away because some people say they'll try to copy it and they'll say, look at that. But there's things
Mhm.
that'll tell me that it's not true, you know,
And
and that's one of like the glyphs.
and that's another thing. Like people, like they're hardcore set on what they know, and they refuse to accept other people's experiences. But you're in the Northeast. Our weather down here is totally different. Our elevations, even where Amanda is, she's in the foothills, right, of the
Mhm.
mountains. I'm one county out of Appalachia. I can see Appalachia from here, but I'm not in it. But if you look at the map, I'm the next one over is. So, and then it goes down in Alabama, and then like you mentioned before, the skunk ape, the higher elevations. You touched on that. Um, if I spent 50 years in one area, then I know what these do. I know what
Yeah,
I'm saying. So
Mhm.
exactly.
people would just totally like, Ernie, you're crazy. I've never seen that before. Well, I've
Yeah.
seen deer do things. I've seen turtles do things that nobody's ever
Yeah.
seen
Well,
before.
people used to they used to say that, well, they don't migrate. Well, let's just take a good look at the word migrate, for instance. Okay, migrate might only be like maybe 20 miles. Okay, it could be 100 miles, could be 1,000, could be 17,000 miles. Okay, but we have patterned them.
Yeah,
We know, we know for a fact where they come through and when they come through. And enough said right there. People say, well, where's the pictures? I'm not taking a picture of it.
well,
There's no
so
need to because I'm
we,
not going to. I'm not about to try to prove something I've already proved to myself. Is what
well,
our
Mhm.
goal. Our
Ernie,
goal is not to break their trust.
Ernie,
Yes.
we don't owe whatever we find out. We don't owe anybody anything. We're doing
Yeah,
this out of the goodness of our heart. If you accept it, you accept it. If you don't, that's fine too.
yeah, yeah. And there's
And
a
I
close knit group.
understand.
Yeah, it's a close knit group of us that we share amongst ourselves. It's all based on that spiritual value, on that
Yeah,
trust, exactly what they're attracted to. That's what we're trying. That's what I'm trying to do. And that's what some of these other gentlemen are actually trying to do. We are not just going to hand somebody the keys to the castle, so that they can
right.
say, hey, look at me, whatever. We're not going to be egotistical about it. We're just not going to let you rent that type of space out of our minds.
I love it.
You know?
My favorite thing is if you owe it to science, and I don't owe it to nobody.
I don't know what it's
Yeah,
Yeah,
I owe it to people I
absolutely.
trust and my friends and people that's going to get involved in
Oh,
it and want to. Yeah. We
trust me.
can. Yeah, we can share this information privately. There's a ton
Yeah,
of stuff that I can't say on the
37.
air.
Mm.
37 years ago, I told a few people because so excited. Who do I talk to? And yeah, I got made fun of by regular normal people. Okay, and then by highly educated people. The regular normal people, I cut it off. But I remember telling a couple of them, I said, "I'll tell you what I'll do. Is I'll bring you up there. I'll let you talk to some town folks first, so you can get a good idea what the area is like. So, because you're going to be a little scared, you don't want to wet yourself. Take the extra pants with you. I'm going to drop you. I'm going to drop you off up there, and I'll come back in a week." And
Oh
they're like,
Lord.
well, no, I do know. You're right, exactly right. I do know. I'm going to drop you off in a week, and then when you do have an encounter, and I tell this to a lot of people even to this day that want to argue on some of these forums, I go, you know what? The last thing I'll say to them, I'll say, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you, but someday I hope you do have an encounter because you're going to want to speak with somebody,
Yep.
and that man's probably going to be me.
Yep.
And when you come to me, you bet your Betty that I will listen to you because I know what it's like, that PTSD. So I will listen to you. So in the future, treat all them witnesses properly, no matter what, even if we know. And I mean, I have heard some that we had a forensic artist, I just share as you can, okay, so they're going to love it. Your people will love it. Is this individual, we had a forensic artist working with us, and this transpired over like 6 or 7 years. I won't tell you the state or anything or names, but he kept seeing this female, okay, being. All right. Now, what was going on is he was describing, he had the forensic artist draw. And of course, I'm watching kind of off. So I'm watching this, and he's telling us what happened in the campgrounds over these years and everything with his buddy. And then he started saying how his buddy wanted him to, was mad at him because he wasn't staying in the tent with him at night. He was sleeping in the hammock outside the tent and everything. And this guy didn't understand why he was so tired to begin with. Well, you'll all put this together in a second here, because what he had this man draw looked exactly like Raggedy Ann, with the red freckles, the lipstick, the hair, and everything. Now that's frightening. That you would that you would that you would wake up and you'd be seeing this thing, and this thing wants to introduce you to his mother and father.
Whew.
Now, now, let
What
me tell you
Kunbo
something,
calls brown shorts moment.
Roger. Amanda, I can tell you assuredly right now that if I was out in the woods and something like that approached me, we're talking Chucky here. We're talking, I'm not just going to take you and shoot you and chop up little pieces and light you on fire. I'm going to scatter you to the four winds.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's
what
not
we
natural.
what we
Yeah,
think
double
is,
tap for sure.
yeah, what I think is maybe a medicinal herb might have fell in his drink from one of the trees
Well, that
or something, because of him and his buddy broke off the relationship.
yeah.
It's so we won't go any further than that. I felt so sad for the guy because this was something that lived in his mind that he
Well,
firmly believed,
when you
but I
think
think there's something deeper.
Well, you think about it, yes. People perceive things different. That's like, if seven of us witness something and they interview all seven of us, we're gonna have different. Our minds work different. Or I
Mhm.
may be focused on one thing, you're focused on another. And,
It's
and,
absolutely true.
and it's fascinating to listen to those stories and watch those people tell those stories, because here's what's scary, Ernie. So I can't laugh at anybody because I've had weird stuff happen. So I started thinking about that a different way. And I, what if he's telling the truth? What if
That's what
we
I'm
can't?
saying.
What if we can't see it? Right?
Yeah,
That's
I've thought that a
what I'm
lot.
really getting at. What if it is the truth? I know I try to do a bi-weekly show with Kenny Thibodeau from Canada, I believe it is. And he's mainly Dog Man,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a couple of them out there that talk about Dog Man. And I was strictly on one side of the fence at first. And I started really thinking about it. And I was on top of the fence. And then I had to really take another good look at myself on what I had been saying. Is after what I seen if you told me, Amanda, that there was a pterodactyl that just landed outside your house there, you've seen it through the window, rest assured, I would want to be there to see this, because I'm thinking that this is really going on. Because
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, nah, come on. Okay. I've already been down that road, is where I never believed it really in Sasquatch, except for Patty, and I figured she was gone, and that was it, until this was standing in front of me.
You
And
want
then
to
it was
talk
like,
about a sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Thought
that's
you were
okay.
you talk about a really creepy coincidence or synchronicity. You just said pterodactyl, and you can believe me if you want to or not, but I've actually, and I can't remember if I've told you this or not, Roger, but I've seen other things in my life, but I've actually seen a thing that resembled a pterodactyl fly over my parents' house as a child.
So that would be like a Thunderbird. I don't know if you know what a Thunderbird
Yep.
is.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm
It's this
familiar with the
earthly.
Thunderbird. This one was very small, so,
Okay.
Well,
which is what was so bizarre
Yeah.
about it, because it reminded me of, at the time I was a kid, it reminded me of Petrie from The Land Before Time.
well,
Kids actually see more than adults.
yeah.
Mm.
And that's
But
another
you
thing.
said immediately you started saying Petrie, and I'm like, okay, now we're getting into.
But y'all, we're coming up on 3 hours. I know
Wow.
Amanda
Wow.
probably has to get up.
Dude.
And I love this.
Oh,
If you have time, Ernie, contact me. We'll because there's a lot to talk about. Because
Yes.
there's so much. Now I'll leave Ernie. One of my favorite things Greg's ever said. He lives with these things down there at Bankhead, and I've been down there several times, but found tracks and all that. Harry, but one time, when people say, "Why don't you have a good picture of it?" He says he's got a heck of a sense of humor. He says, "You know what? People ask that all the time." He said, "You can sit there at the zoo outside the cage and get all the pretty pictures of a lion or a tiger that you want. But if I throw you in that cage with that tiger, how many good, clear pictures you going to get?"
yeah.
Mhm.
There's another factor that nobody figured in here either. Okay. And this factor, you're going to say, wow, I never thought of this. When phones first came out, okay, everything in the phone had to be programmed. When the cameras in the phones first started coming out, the camera did not know whether it was an orange colored, or an apple, green nor red, until somebody actually had to program that in. Where does that come from? That comes from bits and bytes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So now when you use your camera is actually getting the information out of what we used to refer to the FM radio as FM magic. Okay. Your camera on your phone is actually getting information out of FM directly in front of you. Okay. And translating that and putting that on your phone. Now, here's the funny thing. Okay. Since we had to program an orange being an orange and the color orange, because there are green oranges until they're oranges, right? We had to put that in there. The phone did not know that. So the phone can therefore not give you a picture of anything that it doesn't know. You're wrong.
Hmm.
If it's not in there. So what other way can we possibly put it in there? Let's interrogate everybody. Let's find out what they really look like. And then let's start putting the information into AI. Now your camera actually has an idea of what one of these would look like.
Well, and I do remember, was it Samsung? They got busted. People were taking these amazing pictures of the moon. And we're like, what? How's that? That's amazing. But it was cheating with AI.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
you're saying some of our phones, instead of like a regular
All
camera,
of your phones. Your phone is not taking a picture of you nor anybody else in your house. It is getting information that your body is giving off. Electronic information that your body is giving off, bits and bytes. There is no two ifs and buts about it. It is not a film. It is taking direct information right off of what's in front of you.
So is it true what I've heard that the iPhone takes, when you're looking at it, takes an infrared photo every 5 to 10 seconds to make sure you're using it or see if you're using it? Have you heard that?
Yeah, I've heard that.
So
I've heard
Yeah.
of it and seen videos of it where people are looking at with either like an infrared camera or something, and it's watching. It's just a constant flash. And I've also seen something too similar to the subject where people's Wi-Fi routers people can hack into the Wi-Fi router and it can actually map out the room and map out the people based off of the electronic frequencies.
Well,
Right. They don't need to.
if,
They don't need to go into your house, a SWAT team. They can
no.
sit outside and see everybody in your house.
If we're standing out in the woods, Bigfooting, and we've got one of those, and they can see an infrared light, we're like a beacon. I remember, I was recording with this before I got my small recorder here to use, and we were out there about 3 hours one night, and finally I just got tired of keeping up with it, so I put it in the truck upside down away from us. Within the hour, we got one of the most amazing screams 30 yards away. Everybody knows about it, but it was wild. It was 30 yards away in the field with us. Kenzie hit the ground running, locked everybody out of the truck. But I got to thinking about that after I learned about the supposed infrared picture. You're not going to sneak up on anything like that with this going on, and it's like coyotes or whatever. They can see in that what we call it.
Yeah, if you got it out in the open, yeah, absolutely. But that was my point on there with the pictures. It doesn't know what one looks like, so it can't take a picture of it. Just my opinion on it.
Can I send you a picture later? And it's one of our hot spots. And as soon as I saw it, I sent it to my son, and he flipped out. But it looks the cloak look. You can see the outline. But this thing would have to be like 11 foot tall. But it was in a spot where we absolutely got afraid because for 15 minutes there was a fit being thrown. And you're talking about the using the wood. We could actually hear. I've got all this on video. You could actually hear. We could hear whatever it was pick up a downed log, drag it to itself, get the balance, and hit the tree, and the end of it would break off and helicopter hitting limbs and stuff. And we were froze because we had made something mad. Then I realized, Ernie, I'm like, Peyton, you need to be watching our back because this thing's throwing such a fit. I don't know what's behind us, what could sneak up behind us, like you said earlier. And that's a whole nother story. A lot of the people here know, but that thing was picking up 25, 30 pound rocks or boulders and throwing them. And we could hear hitting the small limbs and bouncing as it hit. And I think we wore out our welcome. We was going pretty good.
And we have to think what would make them so mad. Now, one of the things that happened to two of the guys that I know that took the part of the sign language to heart was the fact is they used the pointer finger to the chest to them first and then back themselves. They couldn't see them, but they were getting results that they were there. But what this one gentleman did accidentally is he went to their chest first, where he thought that, they were standing back to his chest. Then he went back to its chest like that. And that's when kind of like things went asunder. They started getting pelted with rocks and pine cones. So
have you ever, on your show, have you ever seen a man named Paramedic in your chat? He watches a lot of our shows, but he's from Oklahoma, Native American. He was telling me, I met him at LBL. You probably have seen him. Well, anyway, he told me he was at a conference one time in Oklahoma where he lives. And the guy come up, didn't know who to talk to. So we've got some stuff recorded. We don't know what it is, but it's weird. Yeah. Well, when he started playing it, he recognized it being part Cherokee and part something else.
Yes.
And he whipped around, and there's another guy did the same thing, and they walked over. And he said, replay that. Well, basically what it was, he sounded like two boogers, what we call them here. But he said, and basically one of them said, humans, what do? And the deeper voice said, scared. In whatever language, the words they used. But they like, replay that again. Make sure we heard that. And both of those guys knew, Pyro and the other guy knew the languages, and they were like blown away. But humans, what do? Scared. So
So it's like some of the words that I thought that I was hearing, I could make out in like between Cherokee and Hebrew and Japanese, and now and
Hmm.
those are the three languages that were being used in an experiment, in one of the many experiments that I know that have been done, where they were actually getting results
Yeah.
in the experiments. Okay, now a lot of people they'll do things like, and this drives me wild. Then we'll probably try to end it here, but it's great. You're out there looking for structures. So you know there's structures out there. Now what are you going to do? Now you know where they are. Now what are you going to do? You know, or they have go out and they knock on the trees. Okay, now you're getting tree knocks back. Now what are you going to do? You're just going to keep going out there. You're going to keep going over to your neighbor's house
Right.
and ringing their doorbell and then running away.
Right. Right.
Okay, I mean,
If
we
it's
we got to go further than that. We know it's
right.
one of the things that
Okay.
Scott Carpenter talked about. That that's why he was studying the Cherokee language himself.
Hmm.
Okay, and some of the Cherokee language he would actually use the words he used, and there was a reason for that. You know, there's also a reason for the Hebrew, because the Hebrew, a lot of words in Cherokee happen to be Hebrew, and so isn't
Hmm.
their alphabet. So, boy, isn't that ironic how that links together with the different forts from the Great Lakes down to the mouth of the Mississippi?
Yeah.
All comes
Isn't
full
that
circle.
interesting?
We have a lot to relearn, I think. I think we knew all this back in the day, and and some, I don't know how we lost it or whatever, if it was on
The
purpose or
only Yeah, and the only way we're going to find out is by pursuing communication with them.
yeah.
That's what's going to happen, to habituate them, to get their trust and keep their trust, learn how to keep that trust, and then learn how to communicate with them, because
And
we don't need a dead body.
no,
We
and
don't.
Mhm.
start believing some of these people that say that's what's going on, instead of laughing
Yes.
at them or looking sideways at them.
Exactly.
Y'all,
Exactly. As far as I'm concerned, they don't have to. I think they're a little bit jealous of it right now, but the ones that are really, really serious about it, they're actually utilizing it.
yeah,
And those are going to be the people who are actually going to learn something from them. I'm going to just smile and just say, I strongly believe that they have something to give to us. Okay, why
I
would you
agree.
not want a gift,
Right.
no matter what
Mhm.
it is?
And some, I'm not going to say me. Some people may be chosen for that, and because, but I feel like they have not special abilities, but extraordinary abilities, and
Mhm.
we
That's
probably could learn a lot.
diplomatic. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a diplomatic way to do it, so that you don't get the people like whoa, whoa, whoa,
yeah,
you know.
but
Yeah, they're definitely, if you're whatever your special ability is, if you'd like to teach it to me, I
there you
definitely
go.
want to learn that, and I don't want to lose it again, and I want to be able to teach other people that. So we need to start off with that one thing, okay? Because we know the other things is being very spiritual when we go out there. Find that feng shui, that cathedral in the woods, and then we can go from there. The communication. That's what we need to do.
Well,
What do we
Ernie,
have here? A leap to go from skeptic to believer. Yeah, and then there's knower. Knower is the one where you just have the heebie-jeebies, like
yeah, we
it,
yeah, and
it happened.
sometimes I forget we're coming from a spot where we are knowers,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of people that are in chat. I've been to some of their places, and Amanda's heard me say this before. Sometimes I have to reel myself back in and realize they're not sitting where I am, and I'm fortunate to have had that experience, so that I can have a discussion with you and Amanda about this
yeah.
other stuff and how it fits together
Well,
what I know. So, thank
it's a
you.
good it's a
Yeah,
good point, Roger. Because I just shared this one last thing, is one of the
yeah,
guys I work with, is because he's been asking me and everything, and I told him, I said, I have to be truthful with you. I said, if I was standing where you're standing and I was listening to myself right now, I don't I really don't know how I would feel. I says,
yeah,
I don't, it's different it's way different for me now, because I don't have, it may sound egotistical to some people, but that's not my message at all. that I'm trying to give out here. It's just that I can't picture. I just can't picture picture this in a way. It's still part of me that as long as it has been and is deep setted in my mind that it seems like maybe like another me or something. And I would like, maybe that was what it is. It was taken from me, another piece of me.
Right.
And I want that piece back. And I'm only going to get that piece back when the message is finally said. The fatal thing is, a long time ago, when I was a little kid, I was at my sister's house, and the two of them were talking in the kitchen, and there was an old man sitting in a chair. And he had my attention. He wasn't saying anything. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm just an old man." He says, "But I have something to tell you." I said, "What's that?" He goes, I said, "How did you get that old?" He says, "You will stay here on this earth until you tell your final story, until your message reaches the final person.
Wow.
And once that last message is given, then your time will be up." So I hope in a way that the message has been given to people and that they get the total message.
That
I hope
It's
I
so
hope it's
true.
soon in a way.
yeah. Amanda, any last questions for Mr. Davieau?
No, not all. I mean, I obviously have hundreds of questions,
I
but none
know,
I
me
can
too.
pinpoint right at the exact moment. But no,
And
it just thank you for coming on and sharing your experience with us and with the chat and everything. This has been an amazing conversation, and it's so nice to and refreshing to meet
yeah,
like-minded people in
right.
this community.
And
You're more than welcome.
like I
Go ahead.
said, I listened to 3 minutes of you talking, and I felt a connection. Like I've got to get him on the show, and I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't listen to anything else. So, uh, we will do a part 2. We'll do a part 8 if we have to, because I can tell you have a lot. Your message is long, and we need to know, and maybe we need to do it like layers of onions. You can expose things to us.
Before you go, Roger,
Yes, sir.
maybe just perhaps it's not my message at all. You can cut this part out for everybody, but maybe it's not my message. Maybe it's their message.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
You're right. Yep, I believe it, I believe things happen the way they're supposed to, and
Absolutely.
I think maybe your name was put in front of me one day by YouTube, and that 3 minutes I knew. So, and I think Amanda, y'all go subscribe to her channel. I know a lot of y'all have. I think you're going to be impressed. The way she does things, we need people with open minds to do the digging. She brings up she did some digging from what 170 years ago, probably things that you found that just blew me away. And
Oh yeah,
we got to relearn this stuff, y'all.
we do.
The evidence is there if we search for it. If only you search for it.
Yep, and that's the thing. The people that want to go on to everybody and ask where the proof is and where the evidence is, I said you ain't put the time in. It's there.
Exactly. Yeah, what you said is like it's not up to us to prove anything to anybody. We know. So
We're past that
it,
point.
Yeah,
exactly.
We're way past that point right now. We're trying to do something different. So
absolutely. I mean, if they want the information, I got no problem to give it to them, because I'm going to just treat it like some of them are treating people that go into
Right.
their campgrounds and they're charging them $1,500 to stay for the weekend, and you bring your own food and stay in a tent.
Yep.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I'll talk to you for a week, and I only charge you $750.
And you might learn something. Anyway, thank you, Ernie. Thank you,
Yeah,
Amanda.
you're welcome.
Yes,
Been
thank you
great.
guys.
Yep, thank you,
We're friends
Amanda.
on Facebook. I'll keep up with you, and
Great.
Yeah,
anytime.
I'd love to connect as well.
Yeah, anytime you want
Absolutely.
to come on, I try to do one a week. Sometimes I don't, but I'm flexible. So if you know you're going to have an open Wednesday night, just I'll see what I can do or whatever. And
Roger, you just let me know,
okay,
and we'll try to and we'll try to set you in there somehow.
okay,
Okay.
all right,
That's the best way to do it. You know what? I got Wednesdays and Thursdays are my days off
okay,
during the week.
all right. Well,
But
that'll work out.
anyways,
Everybody's
yeah.
a lot of great feedback. Everybody loved you, Ernie.
Mm.
I feel like I've been to school, and I feel like this is weird. I hate saying this. Like I feel like there's connection. I know Amanda's like the same way. Like we're a lot alike. We don't know each other. We've never met each other, but
Yeah, we've never met in person.
no, we have a like mindset. So it's awesome. But thank you.
I think your connection is with the forest people.
It made me. You're right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
very much. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
night. Bye-bye.
Bigfoot caught on video.
What the crap?
What was that?
Did you see that?
Yes.
Holy crap.
What the heck was that?
That was on 2 feet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Thought I was seeing things actually.
Oh my goodness. Please tell me we got that on audio, video.